tawragadi sir hafta ano tawbibra monthly tawbibra haidi kungangi bising apun mama di chama manila sir haidi meeting ko mamdi tawbira mani sir gi adu madam kara tawbi kar mama tawbi la pet khambo ya
haibeta de harake sigi kungang si pun na one of the every Sunday is very important day is village atopa thapam di chama pung morning pung 5:30 da pena PSCM to phone kane morning pena ai khombo phonta duga anang chama ga manga truk mama pa yarga ke mara da oi urani subjit pai thong rani ko pena ko khra ga ni ko adu pena ko khra ga di subjit sitorani just 9:30 da mama ga no pisab la ni yen noi mu ka no yen ki thabok torani then evening da pung manga da suti tharani work set everything project ki Sunday ki oina hariba Sunday si work set suti tharani pung manga da angang student mayam jing English spoken class amalai pung amagi village ki oina adu pung amagi class e loi ga adu de villages mayam la ni kayam punni yongo nai gai punni adu da pun de villages in evening last session dadi nupi nupa loi ba angang hoi yarga discussion ka gani madu dai koi prayer to gani prayer ga any religion to boy yang ni channel prayer ni aduga punai sei sakani sei saga discussion talker speaker ani lai gani no gi Sunday gi aduga magi wezes mi to loi yen to gani lila yeng dia koi dia du to
Yes, next question.
Oh, second nanti. Maya sir.
Oh, sir, have you sir? Ano arap ko din ba VIP ni? Ano na ako hindi. Tramay to kaya kada project se adum yaroi fail loi ni. Hay na to di government na tiang pang di ba ni? Actually hari ka di ko. Government ki bakok tagi thang dari ni ko itaw piu hay ba kung ngam di hayan dram ni na thapi ra ko ya I want thanks to them. Moina my thinking ba any project government ki somna habi bodan phajada na we have na project do government na paikala ko project sing se natra ba pung pha bang ngi te du mai hai ba ngamoi ngam de ai ga ma ga on pra contrast ai ke no an ai ko gi da mantra nei khoi mantra do lao ka da ta sega jana village ai ne lao ya ko ma ko du ne abi mantra hai ke sing mantra je sai to te do si yu da ha ngam hai to ke ya ko abi mantra dina ne si project success story se kai noi ka dai ko gi di organization first hai we second I last hai si mantra di lai la ada je se ko ai cũng ngam ngora ma di po khai lor ka ni dan ge e ha da ha sai lor ka ya sa lan ge ko project se ma bu sau ka di organization si bu sau ka la ga di organization ma dai ko villager sin je lai ni ai ko si ya ora sau ka ba hai ji ko ri ni ko ai ko i chau ka pa ji di ai ju dun ya ro ma ni ai ni khal ro nu hai na ai ji na ai sin last tham ni ne ya ko organization first we second I last I just sana maintain terus chat dia adu na sai mai pa ki dem kang do adu na any project ku kan I first ai kya lo ke tha ta lai ba da first ku ko lai ka ba gi na we second right ta ga ai ki na I ni maning tham ni mang I mang tha ni project mai pa ki dem ni thank you.
This is an example of what John F. Kennedy said. You know, do not expect first the government to do for you. You show what you can do for the government. He is telling the government what the government should be doing. You know, he exemplifies it by saying, I am able to do this successfully, so you learn from me. That's why a government official like me has to go and learn from him.
We will take two more questions. The gentleman here on the third row and one more from there. Yeah.
First.
I will.
Sir, okay, English I speak the Malay sir,
I give you say I just I give focus ning tamna maromdom hingjaba masana masal semjaba adumba chaukat putide na and projectors
시 프로젝트가 건강세 사회나 신비로 만든다. 아토피나 마파란디 마니푸르기 월스 나타가 인디아 나타가 마파란디 라가가 사기 빌리지다 사회나 파티트리가 더트로네 앞세 마시기 바탕다 큰바 나타가 인바 나타가 아두고 땅들 설스도 아두고 땅들 술레 자다나 village की music से get direct तो opportunity से लेना नचरगा later बता रहा है कि सर ना तुम मरम तक सभी कई मॉडल भी हैं उधर
Rakwa anybody mapan gitu na tre manung gi bi am la ning ji ko ko chai gi mi am jil la ning gi adu ke interaction da te just ko gi ma gi demonstration tar ngai phi sa boy ro phi sa ba hon jaga le any question interaction mapam tu dai ko madu gi sel phadana hangi adu ga practically ai na pai da madu kamai ta ge yi ge si yani ha
Thank you all for the questions, and thank you Damor and Kumar for the wonderful presentation. Before you go down, I would like to invite our founding curator, Mr. Armstrong Pame, to felicitate you for that wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, Damor. Arun Kumar, we have our second speaker ready with her session. Before I call out our second speaker, let's have a look at her profile.
Leadership for a learning facilitator, come advisor on how to integrate climate adaptation into development planning and climate proofing of development projects across sectors.
And thank you very, very much for having me here. I cannot tell you how happy I am and how grateful I am for being here to join this very important cause. Thank you, Global Shapers, for what you are doing. Thank you, sir, for incubating such a powerful initiative, which I think is the need of the hour. And I am so grateful also for finally making it to Manipur, because I have been working for 20 years now, and in these 20 years there were 5 times that I had to come to Imphal. For some reason or the other, I was not allowed. So finally I'm here and I'm very, very happy. It's great to see the energy in the room. The speaker just before me, Mr. Arun, thank you so much for what you are doing. Thank you for sharing your story here, because as I see it, it is a story of leadership which can make change possible. Ready to do their bit and inspire the government and force the government or any other agency to do the action. And that's where people like you, whoever is sitting in this room on a Saturday, is the hope. And trust me that as I see it, that's the main hope for this country or the world now. Next please. We don't have dearth of technical solutions. You look in, you just at the click of at the touch of your phone, you will find out plenty of technical solutions. You know, what are the technology options, say, to combat climate change or urbanization or rural development. The problem is who will translate these technologies into action. We often look up to the government, but government looks up to us. And what we just saw from the village story is the right combination which is needed, where technology is made to implement. And that's why we need leaders. We need the leader in each one of you to be able to do that. Then we and then I. And if that's one mantra we all could take from here, I think our lives and lives of people around us will change forever. Because the journey is from moving from ego system, the I system, what is my faida, what will I achieve, what is I going to be. From that space, if we could move to an ecosystem space. And that would mean going beyond self. And that is the journey. If we want to be change makers or global shapers, this is what we have to really move to. Yeah, I think we could come to the present now. My request is, if there is anything which is not understandable, and if you could raise your hands and have an interaction, I'm more than comfortable with it. And if you can park the question, we can take it later. But please do try and be with me throughout the presentation. I will not mind any interruption in between. I would, before I get into the space, would any one of you want to just tell me what is climate change? Whatever we understand out of it.
The change of environment.
The change in environment, yes. Anybody else would like to add to him? Thank you. Global warming, yes. Anybody else can add another thought?
There is rise in the annual global temperature, because of which the glaciers, they are melting, and as a result of which the water level is increasing, which is again causing floods and many other such calamities in many parts of the world.
Great, thank you. So collectively, three of you have actually told what is climate change. And I will only summarize it with some more addition. That yes, when we say climate change, the way it is becoming to be perceived is as if it's something new that is happening. While this has always happened, it has happened since years. So when we had Ice Age, whatever little boring history, geography we have remembered, in case we do, there was an Ice Age, and then from Ice Age, when we are into the next stage, climate has always been changing. That is not new. It is nothing to get so paranoid about. But what is happening now is the rate at which things are changing and the way we are responding to it, and the number of people on the planet now who have to respond to it. That is one. Since industrialization has happened, this change has become man-made or human-made. And prior to this, it was more of a natural process, and therefore, the pace, the speed at which climate is changing is much faster than ever in the history of mankind, based on the findings of the scientists. Now, when we say climate is changing, as you rightly said, it is temperature, and the second variable is precipitation. So whenever we are thinking about climate, it is either temperature, precipitation or wind. These are the three variables which define the weather conditions or overall the climate. Now if these three variables are changing, imagine your immediate surrounding will start changing. It starts feeling different. But what we have to understand is that climate change is not a new kind of a subject that has to be done. As we say, okay, apply the gender lens, or apply poverty equity lens. We always say apply the climate lens, which only means that this is a new dimension to be kept in mind. It is something which has started happening in the atmosphere and has an impact on the earth, but is not a different subject. It has to be integrated and made relevant to our everyday life. It cannot be seen as a project. It's something which is a way of life, because since it is going to impact our way of life, it relates to every person on this earth. It is not necessary that only when we are working in climate change, we call ourselves, many people have, we all have expertise on various different things. So we say, I'm a climate expert, but I don't have solution on climate change. So, and it does not work like that. But for climate change, what is important is we all need to understand what it is, and since no one has answers, who knows where are the answers? You may have an answer. Because these global things will have local solutions. So with that perspective, we'll go ahead to what is climate change. If you could please scroll down and please play the video. Yeah.
Climate is changing. And when we say climate, we're not referring to day-to-day changes in weather. We're talking long-term trends. Changes that you can only see over a long period of time. Like shorter ice cover on lakes, warmer average winter temperatures, longer summers, more frequent heat waves and flooding from severe storms. These changes in climate can be difficult to see as we go about our daily lives, but they are important because they impact our communities, economy, and culture. The way we live is based on the climate we live in. Warmer winters means less ice fishing, snowmobiling, and cross-country skiing, all vital parts of our culture and economy. Longer summers mean farmers have a longer growing season, but more bugs and diseases to deal with. Heat waves may be nice if you're on the beach, but they can harm vulnerable people like the elderly and young, or those who don't have access to cooler places. And flooding from heavy rain can destroy homes, roads, and crops. As our climate continues to change, impacts are becoming more and more serious. And even if climate change is not impacting your community now, it will soon. But how and when we react, though, is up to us. We can adapt, which means we change the way we live based on how our communities are being impacted. If flooding is a problem, we can redesign stormwater systems to handle more water. And we can plant trees and crops suited for longer, warmer growing seasons. We can plant vegetation to provide more shade for cold water trout streams, keeping the water temperatures down. And we can develop heat emergency action plans to assist vulnerable people during heat waves. Adaptation, identifying and preparing for the impacts of climate change, helps in the short run and can save property, money, lives, and even wildlife. But in the long run, if we are to slow climate change, we have to curb emissions of carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gases in an effort to reduce global warming. This is called mitigation. Small steps like driving and flying less, decreasing energy use, or reducing consumption are all examples of mitigation. But if mitigation of climate change is to be effective, it has to be on a large scale, which means we have to reduce harmful emissions as individuals, as communities, as businesses, as states, as countries, and collectively as a world.
It's going to affect everybody. Very powerful message.
Ma'am, here.
Yes.
Okay, good morning. So it was a very nice message that the video has just given right now. So the video just said that the change should be in a large scale. For example, the vehicle fumes that are like causing pollutions, which is a major pollutant. Here in Manipur, we see diesel autos, so much of diesel autos, and all these vehicles. Maybe in other parts of the state also, and maybe in other nation also. But then people are like, yes, we should change.
Yes.
But then are they really changing? They are not really changing. It's
Absolutely. We'll definitely come to this part of it as to what exactly can be done at the local level. Thank you. But from this this video, because we will be moving on with the presentation and you might have some answers. The presentation is not yet through, by the way, if you thought you're getting rid of it, no. But if you could tell me some other message that you get out of this film. You said it has to be on large scale. Right? Any other message? Thank you. We'll come back to you. Please hold on that thought. It's very important. We'll come back to what is happening in Manipur as well.
Ma'am, we have a myopic obsession of centralization and monoculture, especially when it comes to environment and climate change. So I think the video is more from like drifting from monoculture to diversity and from centralization to decentralization.
All right. So it advocates decentralization, and for all of us, if we do not understand that completely, it basically says instead of producing at one place and making one center as the hub of power or production, do it in smaller places, let it get decentralized so that the transportation and other things get lessened and things are done locally. Again, Arunji talked about local economy, local sustainability. It's on the same lines. Anybody else? Yes. So how do we cope with the changes in the environment? Thank you very much. Any other message? There are a couple of messages we are missing. Okay, I'll come to it then quickly. A lot times our media or even while talking, we just say, oh, this is all because of climate change. Well, may or maybe not. Because to be very sure that climate is changing, we need to see a pattern of minimum 30 years. Only when there is a pattern recurring for 30 years that we say that yes, climate has changed. Otherwise, other than that, these are variabilities. Climate is varying. It is, and what now from this point onwards in my presentation I'm going to use is a lot of global language, and the intention is that you all also get familiar with the global language. The global discourse on climate uses these terms. So often we get very intimidated with terminologies, and it's important that you get familiar with these terminologies. So climate variability, which means there are variations, but climate change is a typical characteristic only when we see a pattern of 30 years. So for past 30 years, now it is evident why people are saying, scientists are claiming that climate change is happening, is because past 30 years trend is that the temperature is rising. Could we go ahead, please? Is rising. That is for sure. So, a lot of times we debate, is the enemy CO2? CO2 is carbon dioxide, and the unit to measure carbon we are measuring it in carbon in terms of CO2. But when we talk about other gases like methane or many other gases which are emitted in the atmosphere, we break it to carbon dioxide. That is another important thing that you need to know about the science of the climate. So for now, for last 30 years or more, it is evident that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is ever increasing, and now it is established. Recently there was another report which is done by global committee, I'll talk about that in a while, IPCC. That report confirms that the earth has already warmed up. It has warmed up by 1.5 degrees rising temperature. So what we are talking about is the average temperature on the earth is increasing, which is very different than when we say that today, say Imphal is warmer than yesterday or the last season, though it may have a bearing. Next please. So what has caused this amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? What exactly makes, suddenly why we have so much of carbon? And that's why I come to my opening point, the opening part of the presentation, that is the river, source of the rivers, and a lot of other things have started happening with this kind of construction and cutting of forests and industrializations and vehicular traffics, plus many other factors, have really slowly leading to more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Next, please. Next. So what are the impacts? Impacts are what you just saw in the video and some of you just said. The temperature is rising. Not only the temperature continues to rise, and that is what global warming is, as some of you said. It is warming at a faster rate. We do not need a cold earth. We all will die. We do need a warm earth, but we don't need a hot earth. And the pace at which it is warming, that is impacting everything on the earth. So our biodiversity is getting affected. The life in oceans are getting impacted. Agriculture is getting impacted. And alongside temperature, there are changes in precipitation pattern. So there is an argument in India, the overall rainy days have not gone down. We are getting the rainfall we used to get. We are a monsoon country. We are a rain-fed country. Monsoons is what is so important for our agriculture. And overall, if you see in a macro level, nationally, the amount of rainfall we are getting is not reducing. So then what's the problem? The problem is that the pattern of the rainfall has got changed. That what we used to have, our crops are used to having a different amount of precipitation at different intervals. Now suddenly, either we have too much rain on the same day or consecutive days, and it is too heavy a rain, or we don't have any rains. So there are dry spells, and when the rainfall is coming, it is too heavy. And our crops are global at a macro level. One is mitigation, and the other is adaptation. Would anyone want to tell us what is mitigation, irrespective to what is written on the slide?
I would like to say.
Yes, please.
The word mitigation is that says it is a relief or it is an elevation or to make less severe or to make less pain or to make less difficulties. That is called mitigation.
Very nice. The very word says mitigate. Let's mitigate the impact. Let's get it lessened. Let's lessen the impact. So in mitigation, the whole emphasis is reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that goes to the atmosphere. Simple. Just that, have that principle in mind, and then now I'll ask you, how is mitigation possible? Because the entire effort is, let's not put more carbon in the atmosphere. Now, if we are not to put more carbon in the atmosphere, my question to you is, how is that possible? What are some of the measures we can do, you or me, if not at an individual level? Imagine at a society level, what can be done to mitigate, to lessen the amount of carbon going in the atmosphere? Would anyone want to try?
Yes, I would try. Like as we have seen in your short video clip, actually we are using a vehicle and which release a lot of smoke, and in replacement to that we can use a bicycle which release oxygen or air in that.
Yes. So bicycle doesn't release oxygen, but yes, if we plant more trees, that will release oxygen. What bicycle use will do will be it will emit lesser fumes and therefore lesser carbon. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
And ma'am, a lot of it has to do with our lifestyles also.
Absolutely.
And I will give just one example by saying here that normally in villages, like I come from a village where people earlier they were using pot during summers, which can be like done. So now, as more and more people are going to the urban areas, or I should say they are earning money, so now they are feeling that we should have refrigerators. People in the urban areas, for those who have refrigerators, they are now moving to having double door refrigerators, right? Coolers are replaced by ACs, right? So the level that if we were here with the level of money that we are getting, we are going up, right? So this thing we can change at our level.
Yeah, we will come to what extent it is desirable to change and what can be changed. But yes, thank you. The core point that you are trying to say is that the kind of luxuries we use in life are also emitting. So yes, refrigerator, air conditioning, all of that does impact. But move beyond yourselves also. See at a society level, at a macro level. Something that the young lady was saying, that it has to be at a large scale. What are some of the things that can be done at a large scale for mitigation, to mitigate more carbon in the atmosphere? Electric car, okay. Anything, CNGs, okay.
Use of solar energy.
Use of solar energy.
And instead of thermal.
Instead of burning fossil fuels, if we go to solar. Now, it's another matter that the solar panels, the manufacturing of solar panels is also done into some kind of industries, and even that has carbon. But yes, on a long-term basis, using solar and I would say natural sources of energy than burning fossil fuels. So burning of fossil fuels, and thank you for all your responses. Burning of fossil fuels is a very, very important element which needs to be curbed. Anything else?
One more.
Yes, please.
Implementation of forest protection aid, like such as plantation of more trees.
Plantation of more trees. Because trees are the lungs of our environment. As lungs of our body are here, trees are the lungs which can save, because they produce something called as a carbon sink. Forests are a carbon sink. They absorb all of the carbon. As little children we knew that trees release oxygen and breathe in carbon dioxide. I mean, if I would think of an analogy of mother, I would say it is a tree. Because she takes everything which is toxic and gives us everything which is pure. So, that's about mitigation. Yes, please?
Here. I really want to suggest my humble idea also here. I think we have all the problem is known to us, and we know what solution can be met also. We are well educated, we know what is what, and we know what to do actually. But I think self-discipline is very much important here, because we know planting trees is very much important. Okay, some will be planting trees today, and the next day we will come to water it again. So I think what we do, we should be responsible of it. And I think self-discipline is a must, because only doing for people to see it is not what it takes. We should do it like purely, wholeheartedly, so that the change can be made.
Thank you very much, and love you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because self-discipline, self-commitment is very important. We'll quickly, someone wanted to say something, and that will be the last one.
Right side.
Right. My right or your right?
Yeah,
Okay.
all right.
Yes.
Ma'am, from the societal view, the rate of transportation is increasing. So we cannot completely eliminate the forms of transportation which uses the fuels. So what we can do is we can support the public transportation system so that we can somewhat reduce the rate of carbon dioxide.
Thank you very much. We will come to individual actions, but this is a very important point again made, that we cannot stop development, and we do not. No one is advocating not I would say being beneficiaries or of development or not enjoy life, but do it responsibly. So I'll combine the last two comments and just say, for instance, if every house has 3 cars or 2 cars, or if adjoining households are going in the same direction and we have 20 cars, we'll only have traffic jams, we will only have more of fuel consumption and so much more of carbon emitting in the atmosphere. You would also experience when you are standing in a traffic jam, your throat and eyes start burning. It has instant health impacts. So you think about any development indicator. It could be health, it could be water, it could be livelihood, it could be urban development, sewage, anything you think about, agriculture. Every part of our life can get impacted if we don't deal with this enemy coming our way. So while we have our own differences, we can still deal with that, but we instead of dealing with these differences, we need to see that there is something else that is coming which needs a lot of cooperation. We'll come to it again, but that was about mitigation. By and large, so mitigation are large scale things. Till the time we do not have policies also which say, okay, no, we are going solar, come what may. There are countries which have done that. Germany, Netherlands, and I don't really want to make global comparisons. We need to pick up good examples from there. But the sheer size of India does not make it possible to replicate everything 100%. What we must, however, need to learn is how, despite complexities, they have managed to do it, and if there are lessons to be learned. I think as Indians, as people in local areas, regionally and state level, we have enough of expertise to be able to devise our own ways and mechanisms of dealing with any problem, be it climate or any other. Coming to adaptation, that's the scale where you, me, us, local village, panchayat level, community level, organization level can deal with. And what is adaptation? In the interest of time now, I'll quickly go ahead with it. Adaptation is, as someone also said, is about coping with the stresses. So when temperature will rise, when rainfall patterns will change, when agriculture, water, health, all of this is likely to get impacted, are we ready to discipline ourselves, to make the right choices, to make responsible choices of whether we are impacting the environment badly or are we nurturing it? Because ultimately that is the home we are living in. So could we go to the next one, please? It's important that you keep yourself informed about things. That's the first step also sometimes to change, that we know about it. Yeah? Next, please. So yeah, these are some of the terminologies. So we have IPCC, Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change. This is the body, it is an international body of scientists. They make assessments after periodically, year after year or 3 years, they give that. And this is a body which has been established by United Nations Environment. This report was out recently. And it is called as AR, Assessment Report. So in your newspapers you will see AR1, AR2, AR5. And that is how they start changing, this is how they evolve the understanding on climate change. So AR4 was saying that climate is changing and it is 1 degree and these are, and it's a very detailed process where scientists come together, but they also bring out something called as policy notes to give certain ambitions, certain goals that we have to curb the amount of carbon in the earth to 2 degrees, and therefore countries have to act responsibly. And it's a very interesting debate there. So the less developed country says, well, we have never contributed to emitting carbon, we are only now developing. And this is a very important dialogue you all need to please understand. That the challenge is to balance environment and development. When the less developed countries say that, look, historically we have not developed. It is only now with globalization, with getting better technologies that we have begun to develop. And you are asking us not to make industries, not to go for road construction or go for public transport. We want to have cars for every individual. There are companies like Tata which says every individual should have a car, and therefore Nano has come. So what about our aspirations? While the West, the Western countries, the ever-developed countries says, well, we will not be able to take historical responsibility. While we have done our own mistakes or we have developed at a faster rate, the earth is same. So there is a very interesting dialogue and debate at the UNFCCC, and most of the times at the COP, they come back without signing anything. So recently the Paris Treaty, if you know, and you would possibly be able to relate to some of this, if someone is following it, please add to the dialogue I am making right now. The Paris Treaty finally had a stage when most of the countries signed up to UNFCCC, but recently President Trump, has withdrawn. So America suddenly says, sorry, I am not a signatory to UNFCCC, which means I will do nothing to curb the climate change, the emissions. And therefore, India is being seen as a very important player because India is a very interesting country globally, from a global point of view, not only from a market point of view, but because of a sheer size. It wants to, the world is looking at us as one of the fastest growing economies, but also we are a very strange country. We have the widest, I would say, divide between the developed and less developed. So we are having a mini India of less developed in a bigger India which is claiming to be more developed. And that's where we need to be, each one of us have a role to play, because we citizens have to come together and create that mass awareness and demand from, as Sir rightly said, demand from government, demand from policymakers that our development has to be equitable. We cannot afford to have 2% riches on one side and 98% of poor or middle class or lower middle class or people in poverty on the other side. That's not the kind of development we the people would like to have. So you would like to appreciate how everything is connected to each other. Climate change or climate science is not an individual study to be done in silo. We have to integrate this everywhere and bring it down. So this was the story about COP, Kyoto Protocol. I will just come to Paris Agreement. So it started with Kyoto. Why Kyoto? Because it was done in Kyoto. Kyoto is a beautiful city in Japan, and therefore we say it's Kyoto Protocol. You will read a lot about this in the newspapers. The reference point is Kyoto Protocol. When the treaty for the global emissions was adopted, and Paris Agreement decided that the temperature under 2 degrees will be adopted. That was COP21. So imagine it was on the 21st COP, 21st conference of parties, that they could finally decide, okay, the capping will be 2 degrees, because beyond 2 degrees, Earth and inhabitants of Earth, be it humans or animals or biodiversity, cannot afford to have a warmer Earth. Right? Next, please. So what will happen if we have a warmer Earth? We'll see a quick video.
And to those engineers who invent email IDs and IoTs, they are saving the earth practically, actually. So, an introduction and invention of more IoTs, Internet of Things, might be one of the best solutions.
Yes. See, when we, thank you, first of all, thank you very much. So when we say yes, so we need to constantly think of what will work. When we label anything as the best, we will need to map the entire system. Because when we say internet, then we also have various calculations on how much does the charging and how much email circulations also consume energy. But definitely when you say it's a comparison between cutting trees using paper and digitally, most definitely that is the choice to make. And these are the kind of permutation combinations we have to make. By the way, we will need to ourselves do an exercise as to what are all the kind of activities we can do to combat or to do our bit. But let's come to the film. Thanks for the input.
A single degree temperature increase could eliminate fresh water for a third of the planet within 85 years. Warming at the poles happens faster than the global average. 40% of Arctic sea ice has disappeared in the last 30 years. While ice reflects heat, oceans absorb it, so as ice melts, the process becomes self-reinforcing. More ocean surface means more heat absorbed, which raises temperatures, making the ice less likely to reform. Mountainous regions are at greater risk of landslides as the permafrost which held them together for thousands of years melts away. Low-lying countries like the Maldives are submerged as sea levels rise, and countries already hit by hurricanes face ever greater storms. At a 2-degree rise, people begin to die in what are now considered normal summers. In 2003, with temperatures 2.3 degrees above average, 52,000 people died across Europe. Plant growth slows down, then stops. They don't absorb carbon dioxide as efficiently, instead emitting it. The extra carbon sees global warming spiral out of control. 125,000 years ago, when temperatures were 2 degrees higher, sea levels were up by 6 metres. Today, that extra water makes up our polar ice, which is melting. By the year 2100, sea levels could rise by a metre, displacing 10% of the world's population. In this 2-degree future, ecosystems across the globe collapse as species migrate and fall out of sync. A third of all life on Earth faces extinction. Scientists say we can still avoid a 2-degree rise if we limit our carbon emissions to no more than 2.9 trillion tonnes. We've already used 1.9 trillion tonnes, we have 1 trillion left to use between now and forever. At the current rate, we'll use it in just 21 years.
And we know what is going to happen if we go much higher. I'll need to wait everyone, you can go through this. This can be a summary. For now, we'll move next. Coming to Manipur. So at the national level, we have the NAPCC. At the state level, we have the SAPCC. These are all quite interesting, rhyming kind of words. But SAPCC stands for State Action Plan for Climate Change. You need to be informed about it, that it is the SWGC. This is the, so you have SLACC, These are the different committees which are working. So the Chief Minister of the state is responsible to oversee. Then we have a state level steering committee which under the chairmanship of Chief Secretary, which oversees that the state action plan for climate change should not only assess what is it that is going to happen to Manipur as and when climate is changing, but how should we now plan our development in a way that we can both mitigate and adapt. And the nodal agency which is responsible is the environment, the Forest and Environment Department is responsible for coordinating the entire development of the plan. But usually the problem is that the other departments think that, oh, climate change, go to NOEF, Ministry or Department of Forest and Environment. We don't have much to do. A health department or a water department usually will say that because we think that it is their mandate. And now you would definitely be able to appreciate that how climate change will be a mandate of every department. There will be a multiplier's impact. Next. So transportation, burning waste in the open, using electricity properly, small things, with the kind of electricity right now we have, or even in our homes, responsible action towards it, burning crackers, producing more waste, and using new products and services each time. So there is a short film I would recommend each one of you to see, which is called a Story of Stuff. It's a 7-minute film, The Story of Stuff, which only says how market is always attracting us. If you please buy this apparel, buy these shoes, buy these wallets, buy this kind of a new designer handbag and designer whatever, all of that has a bearing on the environment. And we must see what are the water footprints, what are the carbon footprints, how much. So please, my appeal to you all is educate yourselves as to what is my favorite list of things that I want to buy, and just go and see how is it produced. Is it produced first of all locally or in some other continent, and how hard we are working and spending all our money to get that only for our satisfaction, which is somewhere here. It doesn't even make us happy on a long term. And that's the very strong appeal I'd like to make. Please make a list of things you aspire to buy. See what are the footprints in the production process, and then make a choice for what would you like to buy. So we should not go khadi only because Gandhiji said, but because it makes sense. And that's the kind of religion we should now talk about. That is the religion that and I talked this after being inspired by Mr. Sonam Wangchuk, who is the Magsaysay awardee and the protagonist of the film Three Idiots, who talks about how now using plastic should be ahimsa. Now, say using a car alone when we can go by a bicycle should be treated as ahimsa because we are going to damage something else. Next, please. This should be the last slide. So calculate your own carbon footprints. This was the message. Make a list. See how much carbon emission. Next. So one sec. Right now, the average is the average carbon footprint per capita carbon, per individually carbon that is being emitted ranges between 4 to 20 20 tons per year. And the ideal should be 1.2 per year. So every individual needs to have only this much carbon footprint. The internet is full of tools which can tell you what is the carbon emission you make. So when I have come from Delhi to Imphal, I have emitted carbon. And it's all about offsetting it. How should I change my karma to offset that kind of a carbon? We have to start thinking like that. We may not always be able to do it, but we need to start thinking. Next. What can I do at a larger scale? Next. Demand action. We have talked about it. Next. We have to go away from fossils and come to solar. And no, please, last one. encourage companies to reduce their ecological print. So now that you are coming, you are at this stage and age of life, that from here you are very soon going to be able to influence decision making by in the companies that you will work, or you might already be working, or in your environment through government or through media agencies. We need to start demanding companies to go the green way. And market listens to its consumers. Market is the force we can definitely change. It will also force the government to change. And on that note, I would now conclude and with the last message that we have, that some of you already said and I'll only be repeating. Please have the willingness to do something about things without getting very scared about it. Thank you very much. And now I will back to
Thank you so much, Mr. Dr.
Mitigate the environmental change. We need to do at the individual level. But for doing so, first we have to change our mindset. But in the practical life, individuals, so for example, cutting this is not good for the environment. But after giving awareness programs or something else, he or she follows what he or she done before. How to, or it needs some leader, I think. So how to organize or how to motivate them. Please give some tips.
behavior change is not easy, it's painful. And we who are trying to change anybody's behavior has to be ready that it are just doing whatever they want. No? So the idea is that there are no rights and wrongs. And there is no point getting into a debate right now. It is about co-creating a solution. If I have become or you have become environmentally conscious, getting angry with someone who is not conscious may not help. It's about inspiring. We need to inspire people towards smaller actions. And therefore, the way we are conducting our workshops, the way we are messaging is very important so that people will feel the pain point.
Yes, thanks, ma'am, please. Here. Where are you? Here, ma'am. Okay. Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Sophia from GM College of Commerce. And ma'am, my question is, yes, there are many steps taken up by the government, like not only the government, so many organizations, like there is regenerating of municipal waste or electronic waste or like plastic waste, many things are going there. But ma'am, for the air pollution, yes, as ma'am, like ma'am has been focusing on individual improvement, like using bicycle instead of this vehicle. But ma'am, from the industrial level, is there any, yes, we heard that there are many things like those air filters, using air filters and all. But ma'am, can you please stress on any other steps taken by the industrial for controlling air pollution?
Thank you. So industries will only take steps which either are, only two factors will help them take steps. One is the consumer. He's a business, there we have businessmen. They are consumers. It will respond to the demand in the economy. Second, the law. Law will also respond to the welfare needs and also to what is happening otherwise in the voting now. So that's a macro level answer. What steps are being taken other than bicycle to, of course if you have to go 50 kilometers from here and you say recommended is bicycle, sorry, it is not something practical, neither desirable, and may not be absolutely realistic. But what is to be done here has to be done a different kind of planning and thinking. So when we say public transportation, use public transport, but till the time we have a system where door-to-door public transport is not available, it's very difficult. When you travel in a country like Germany, or in a country like Japan, people use public transport because it has many connections till the doorstep. Because no one, and there are models to replicate where convenience and comfort of people are not compromised with. We are not talking about taking hardships on one side, because if life becomes too hard, we'll say after 10 days, forget, hell with climate change, it will happen after 30 years, let me live my life today. So the idea is, how do we plan, how responsibly are we planning? So there are things like CNG vehicles, there are public transports, there are trains that are coming to make sure that the transportation is faster. If you talk about industry, it will always respond to what is being demanded. So suddenly in Delhi area, suddenly after for the diesel buses were banned, suddenly there was a rise in factories which were making CNG kits, because it will always respond to that. And that's the kind of policy, that's the leverage there. The entry point is the policy making. And why will government make policy till the time citizens don't demand for it?
Next question.
Hello.
Okay, you will all get your chance to ask questions, but let's do one by one. Okay.
The only solution, which whatever we may say, we may suggest, it is because of the impacts that the changing nature has given to us. We lack love of nature. And first, we must teach our young ones or children to love the nature, make them stand in awe and around, seeing trees. They should be taught to love trees and nature around us, or make a strict law. If government is the most responsible body, in Manipur recently there was a case of cutting down tons of trees just for making roads. It is necessary to make roads, but cutting those huge amount of trees is not right, in my opinion. So we must impart love of nature to our youngsters. Nature, we are trying to heal nature, but nature is itself a healer. It heals itself. But we must look and wait. For time being, we must stop to make problems. We must not make fuss about nature. And I would like to suggest, it is not a question, but I should say it's a suggestion. I want to suggest to all the people around here, all the participants, to read a novel by Henry David Thoreau, Walden, Life in the Wood. There, ma'am has also spoken about consumerism. Consumerism. All the pollution in seas or whatever in land or soil, it is because of our unnecessary buying of goods and things. Please don't buy unnecessary things. Just question yourself if it is really necessary or not.
Thank you very much. So one quick clue from your picking up a thread from what you said is, can we make simplicity fashionable now? Can this group decide that yes, we will live simple and that is the new fashion? Yeah. So that's what we may want to do.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, the lady
I would like to
should we say ladies first, or I don't know.
Yeah,
Good afternoon, ma'am.
who is speaking? Can you raise your hands because we can't see you?
I'm here, Adaptation here, representing Dynamic Manipur.
Where are you?
I'm here. Second note. Madam, I would like to ask two questions.
Before you ask your question, one short appeal to all our participants. Can you please make your question as short and specific as you can, because there are so many people who want to ask questions. Yeah,
Madam, I would like to ask two short questions. My first question is, how has global warming affected the world so far? And my next question is, what impacts will global warming have in future? Thank you.
That we can meet in the break, because this will not have a short answer. It'll have a long answer. A little bit has been covered here. And yes, I'll be very happy to, not only to you, the invitation is to anybody who wants to understand more on climate or adaptation or local actions or leadership. Please feel free to write to me or even text me. If you may call, I may not respond very quickly, but I will be available to support you in whatever limited ways I can, if that's okay.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. I have a question here. So, like you rightly pointed out that the lived reality of the people here in the developing countries is different from the developed countries like the US and all. And also that climate change is a longitudinal change. A lot of us are not being able to comprehend that climate change is for real. And a lot of the public, us common people are not being able to understand the jargons that are put into saying that climate change is this. And of course, even Mr. Trump himself vehemently rejected climate change is for real. So I just wanted to ask, what can be the awareness for people, normal people, common people like us, to put an awareness into the people that climate change is for real and to make this problem our own? Okay, that's the question.
Okay, thank you. So there are many resources. There are resources which teaches climate change as though it is being taught to kindergarten children in pictures, and there are evidences. That's the kind of literature available. There are many videos, animation videos, to make the science of it clear, right? The science. But you are talking about the belief, how to make people believe that it is happening. That is where someone said mindset change, attitudinal change. One has to be open-minded to understand and believe that this is happening. And for that, the best way is to give evidence, which is something that person can see or feel around their life, which can be made related to their lives. So if we only talk about planet or COP or global or national, it looks very far. It does not look something that will impact us. So if it has to make an impact on someone, it has to be something which will relate to their life. Unless that happens, they may not be very bothered about it. And there is enough literature which will explain the science. And the thinking, it sets a thinking. And let people stay with that thinking. We don't have to be experts to give answers. Yes, we don't have all answers. No one in this world has answers. And it's okay to let people think, but let them relate to it. Unless we don't relate it to our lives, it may not happen.
Hello, ma'am. Concerned about mitigation of climate change through agriculture. So, Indeed, as an expert of climate change, may I know from you on how organic farming is actually helping to mitigate climate change?
Also is a very high contributor to carbon emissions. It's not that agriculture is not contributing, but because of use of fertilizers, when we go organic, when we use manure as our natural fertilizer, it definitely does not contribute that kind of carbon in the environment. But agriculture will have to make many adaptations. There are many crop varieties which, because of declining soil fertility or changing rainfall seasons patterns, may not be able to produce the kind of yield. The crop yield may go down in the changing scenario. Hence, what is required is we need to think about different varieties, and there are scientists who are working tirelessly on getting these solutions. The important part here again is to, at a macro level, to make a decision here, because the idea is to make sure food security does not get compromised with. So at no point can we take a decision that if we get so worried about it and we start demanding that it should only be organic and no other way, then we'll have to maybe go the Sikkim way. Now Sikkim is a totally organic state. But it has taken years to come there, because at a macro level the production should not go down, and no one, the supplier of food should definitely not be compromised with. So it will always be a permutation combination that we will need to use.
Left. Use bicycles and change vehicles. But my question is that the CNG vehicles and the bicycles are not handmade, but are made in factories and industries. So, are there no any alternatives other than using CNG vehicles and bicycles? That's my question now.
Yeah, the vehicles that God gave us, the two legs. CNGs, these are all options. Now, at that point, what option can be used is something we can think about, and that can be done in decision making. So, normally in marriages or in big parties, what we say is cars after cars. Because we all want to show that is the mindset change that is required. Can we think of a sustainable way of organizing our events? Can we think of sustainable way of traveling to offices? And rest, everything that is being done by, say, politicians or celebrities is all symbolic. It is to give a message. That cannot be a solution in itself, but it's a very important step. Yeah. So, to be honest, I don't have a very decisive answer.
We will take just 2-3 more questions and then we'll have a break. Yes. No, the guy here, the man sitting on the second row. After.
Ma'am, I would like to ask a personal question, since everyone is asking general one. I would like to know the area of focus of your project regarding SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and are your project based on United Nations Development Policy? Your project are based on United Nations Development Policy, or is it something?
See, so there is nothing like, I would say, my project, but the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, is another very important area you all should know about. These are goals, so they were MDGs, called as some Millennium Development Goals, which are now converted to SDGs, which talk about what are the goals. When we talk about sustainable development, what all should happen for development to be sustainable? Which, in other words, if we make it more simple, what are some of the things which are bare minimum that should happen if we say development is happening over a long run, and which ensures that it's not only today and some of us are developing, it is over a long period of time when all of us are developing, is the crux. So it talks about gender, it talks about climate, it talks about urban, better cities. So there are 17 goals. Now there are different projects under each of these goals. Some of the projects are done at a macro level. So countries are having bilateral cooperations that are called as, they are called, so there are some trans-boundary water projects. There are some regional projects where SAARC countries are together. There are some global projects, in terms of, say, having water-related issues or health interventions, or solar, or even technology exchange from some country to another country. Those are the macro level projects. Coming down to individual level, we need to also start thinking how everything that we are doing in our work, in our grassroots level work, can contribute to the SDG. So when whatever little I was blessed to listen to Mr. Arun, what he is doing is actually contributing to SDGs in many ways. He's contributing to livelihood, he's contributing to governance, he's contributing to sustainability in many, many ways. Because if that is happening, health is improving, water resources are improving, people's consciousness is improving. And I'm so grateful to you, Mr. Arun, that you have a place where people from multiple faiths can come and pray, because that is what we really need to have. So I would again reiterate that there is no one project or there is no I project. There are some projects that we are doing in Andaman Nicobars and in the Himalayas. And LEAD is a global network of fellows. So our fellows are working in all parts of the country. In different ways they are contributing to SDG. So some people are working on malnutrition. They are contributing to the public health and reduction of poverty and malnutrition and standard growth. Similarly, people are contributing in livelihood. So
normal people, like, they don't know about the environment stuff, because most of us here are literate, so we're a little bit more aware. So how do we convince the normal people that caring for environment is the best economics?
Sure. So this is a question the young lady also asked, and the one thing we can do is we can listen and build on to each other, of course. How normal people is, again, we are assuming that people don't know about it. Everyone is feeling it. The farmers who are not so literate, if by and large we say that, are feeling it the most because they are handling the earth more than you and me are. They're dealing with earth every day. They exactly know. They may not use the jargon, they may not know it's climate change, but they know something is changing. And by the way, they are also adapting to it. While we are talking about it, they are thinking about it, they are devising new methods, they are with their own indigenous knowledge. So that has really a real value. For sure, going local, having local solutions, doing things as far as possible within the domain is the answer. How do we convince? How do we reach out? Is by reaching out. By talking about it, by making simplicity fashionable, by not wowing or being in awe of what next do we need to buy, and really making environment and simplicity as the core value. That's how I see it.
Thank you. We'll take one more question.
Yeah, center here, straight from here.
Okay, last question, please.
Yeah, I'm Yong Mekan Chang, coming from Shuri. It's not new to us anymore, but alternatives. Because 60% of us depends on agriculture and 40% depends on the forest products. So I want to know what alternative can be given to those depending on the forest products, cutting down of trees, and then give another thing that I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. So, very pointed question. Thank you. Diversification is the answer. Over-dependence on anything which is uncertain will not help. So diversifying would mean not only, say, if it is agriculture only, thinking about horticulture, animal husbandry, or value addition of the production, or having small self-help groups trying to do other livelihood activities, which are natural resource management based activities, which do not harm the environment. So taking environment along, using those, so therefore having small enterprises from the forest produce, or having diversified crops, getting educated on the new crop variety and how to replenish the soil are the kind of things. This itself is a huge domain of knowledge and expertise that is needed. But for sure, dependence on one, especially if it shows that that particular source is vulnerable, we need to diversify and have different options to be dependent on. And that's what comes under adaptation. That is what the preparedness that has to set in. Which in some cases is happening on its own because families and farmers and communities which are facing it are already adapting to change. And where they cannot or are not being able to is where the hand-holding support is needed. And all of these strategies are covered in your SAP-CC, the State Action Plan for Climate Change. The irony with it is that it is a document which has been left unattended. It needs to now get implemented by different line departments.
Okay, thank you all. We're really sorry we cannot take any more questions. We have lunch break after this, and our speaker, Ms. Bhavana Luthra, will be available to discuss any sort of doubt you have. So please don't worry, you'll get all the opportunity you need during the break. So thank you once again, Ms. Bhavana Luthra, for that wonderful session. We cannot be more, we are really thankful that you traveled all the way from Delhi and you came straight from the airport to present this lecture. So ladies and gentlemen, please give another round of applause for Ms. Bhavana Luthra. Before you go down, I would like to invite our curator, Mr. Bankim Nongthopong, to kindly come up on stage and felicitate our wonderful speaker.
So while he's coming on the stage, I really want to thank you very much. You were amazing, and thank you so much. If we can make simplicity fashionable, thank you so much.
Thank you once again, Ms. Bhavna Luthra. Before we close the morning session, there are a few announcements to be made and one special moment to be given to a dear friend of the Global Shapers. Do we have any representatives of Enfogel from Ukrul? Any representatives from Enfogel? If you're there, can you please stand up? Representatives from Enfogel, Ukrul?
Jefferson, are you there?
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, Enfogel stands for Environment Force at grassroots level. They are based out of Ukrul and they are a voluntary organization. In the past few months, Global Shapers have initiated a project called Trillionaires, where we plant trees at any available location where we can. So the goal is to plant 1 trillion trees in the South Asian region, and Global Shapers Imphal Hub has been part of this project at our local capacity. So for Ukrul, we were fortunate enough to have Enfogel join this cause of planting trees, and with the help of the volunteers from Enfogel Ukrul, we were able to plant 8,500 trees only in Ukrul. So ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for our volunteers from Enfogel, even though they are not here. If all of them could make it here, but unfortunately they are not here. So that's one. Another announcement is if there is any representatives from WABS, Shiro Youth Club, Tribal University, you are all requested to kindly report at the registration desk. Kindly reach out to Mathanmi and Johnson. Thank you. So after the wonderful 2 sessions of for the morning, we have another lineup of exciting sessions based on education. We have our speaker, Mr. Deep Jyoti. Can you please stand up? We have Mr. Deep Jyoti, who traveled from Guwahati, and we have Ms. Nathalie Dora Sehu, who has traveled all the way from Thailand. Can you please stand up? So they are all ready to conduct their sessions right after lunch break. So I would like to request all our participants not to disappear after lunch. So, yeah, okay. So anyway, I hope you all remember your numbers yesterday. Shall we do another counting? So let's do like this. Whoever has their numbers, you may proceed for lunch at your respective group numbers, respective rooms. Same as yesterday, whoever does not have a number can stay back. We will allot numbers for you. Our friends from the hills and from outside Manipur were not able to understand properly what Mr. Arun Kumar had spoken. So we have a small video that we will be showing from YouTube to have a revision about his project. So please bear with us. Please bear with us and enjoy the video.
Sustainable livelihood pinabagi pandamda adopt tawkre. Development asi wake of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision of adopting and developing the village into a model village ki makhada lakli. Haujik fawbada organization asina nongpok sanjinvam village da tongan ba lam mangada development purakre amadi kunjasingda sendan lambi piri. Hiram sida meeting tamina 2017 da village asi Prime Minister Narendra Modi ki vision Haibadi MLA Amadi MP Kudingna Sanshad Ashram Gram Yojana gi makhada village amamam adopt tawba amadi village adubu nungaina hingba yaba mafam amada transform tawbagi tung induna adopt tawkhibani. Langle gi Chief Executive Officer Talim Arun Kumar masama thantana government ki mateng amatta yaudana village asibu manage tawba amadi role village ama oina develop tawkhi.
ꯈꯨꯡꯒꯪꯁꯤꯗ human resource focus ꯇꯧꯔꯒ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯑꯉꯥꯡꯁꯤꯡ ꯌꯨꯝꯊꯣꯡꯒꯤ ꯑꯉꯥꯡ ꯑꯃꯃꯝ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯅ ꯀꯧꯊꯣꯛꯑꯒ ꯑꯉꯥꯡꯁꯤ ꯁꯥꯟꯅꯕꯒꯤ ꯃꯥꯏꯀꯩꯗ ꯄꯨꯁꯜꯂꯤ ꯑꯍꯥꯟꯕꯗ ꯑꯅꯤꯁꯨꯕꯗ ꯁꯦꯟꯃꯤꯠꯂꯣꯟꯗ ꯍꯦꯟꯅ ꯃꯇꯦꯡ ꯄꯥꯡꯕ ꯌꯥꯕ voluntary farm ꯌꯨꯝ ꯌꯨꯝꯗ ꯄ꯭ꯂꯥꯟ ꯇꯧꯏ implement ꯇꯧꯏ ꯑꯅꯗꯔ ꯑꯃꯅ ꯅꯨꯄꯤ ꯈꯛꯇꯒꯤ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ ꯅꯨꯄꯤ 150 ꯀꯧꯊꯣꯛꯑꯒ ꯊꯕꯛ ꯁꯨꯃꯤꯟꯅꯕ ꯌꯥꯕ ꯄꯨꯟꯅ ꯁꯨꯃꯤꯟꯅꯕ ꯌꯥꯕ ꯂꯣꯏ ꯂꯨꯝ ꯄ꯭ꯔꯣꯖꯦꯛ ꯑꯃ ꯑꯩꯅ implement ꯇꯧꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯕ ꯑꯍꯨꯝꯁꯤꯅ ꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯈꯨꯃꯥꯡ ꯆꯥꯎꯁꯟꯅ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯈꯨꯡꯒꯪꯒꯤꯗ ꯍꯥꯟꯅ ꯆꯪꯉꯛꯈꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯔꯦꯁꯄꯣꯟꯁꯇꯣ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯕ ꯐꯪꯉꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯁꯤꯡꯒꯤ ꯄꯨꯟꯁꯤꯗ ꯇꯪꯗꯨ ꯂꯩꯇꯥꯕꯒꯤ ꯃꯃꯤ ꯇꯥꯕ ꯍꯧꯔꯛꯑꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯒ ꯇꯣꯉꯥꯟꯕ ꯁꯨꯅꯤꯡꯕ ꯅꯣꯅꯤꯡꯕꯒꯤ ꯋꯥꯔꯛ ꯀꯜꯆꯔꯁꯤ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯋꯥꯡꯈꯠꯂꯦ ꯑꯗꯨꯅ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯕꯗꯤ ꯐꯥꯎꯔꯦ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯇꯤ
Ihan hana lupa 1.5 crore invest tawduna Arun Kumar na Langai Banner Makada 12.5 acre Park Chawba Lam village aduda bhara dauduna common facility center ama establish tawki center asina village adugi imung khudik makki nupi singda fiswalo sak khudong chaba piki imung khudik makta backyard poultry farming pibata nattana Langleina yen 10,000 local breeds amadi nganu 8,000 local breeds yopayaba poultry farm amasu linkhatuna bazar da distribute tawduna sendalami amasu oinaki masigi sumathakta water harvesting facility su pukri achoba kaya sengatuna fanghanki
siwa kanje kat koisu dum yawning bai wakande dum poida hadi yumda sabje thanda sabni na tawun khangdaba stadi ma'am samina wani na dum saning bai wakan dum poi si yam harau ma phawai hadi lekai jida phana ba chakpan ba senthum gi marum da tawrok je si yam ngai
Panbe yai madudi Langleina technology ki advancement gi kana balawduna Jackson Tharangi damakta sound system yawba 32 CCTV camera village ki manung amadi akoibada install tawke Project asibu tongan hiram mangada mai pakna launch tawkraba amadi village asibu role model village amada convert tawkraba matungda Arun Kumar amadi mahaki teamna RO water plant school amadi healthcare service ama hawdokna bagi pandam thamli
Okay, thank you for watching the video. I hope our friends from here 500 trees so far, and we cannot thank them enough for their dedicated commitment and for their love for the environment and for nature. May I request our founding curator, Mr. Armstrong Kwame, to kindly come up on stage and present our very humble token of love and appreciation to our friends from Imphal. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our friends from Imphal. Please give them a huge cheer. They deserve it. Coming back to the second half of the second day of Imphal Jamboree, we have 3 sessions, 2 keynote addresses and 1 workshop. So these 3 sessions are based on education. We have our speaker, Mr. Deep Joyti and Ms. Nathalie Dora, all ready to address you all. We will begin with Ms. Nathalie Dora Seho, but before I call her up, please take a look at her profile.
Upgrade our textbooks.
She's also working as a training instructor, school DO, director of business development, Learn Corporation. Graduated from Stanford University School of Business. She was a curator 2017 Global Shapers Community for Tanzania, also a coach for Change Makers Ashoka.
It's like STEM is science, tech, engineering, and math.
Kurumjuri, yeah? Okay, so hopefully you're not too sleepy after lunch. Okay, so and it's good to see. Lisa was saying, everybody come back after lunch, and it's good to see that everybody's back after lunch. So thank you for having me here. This is like my first time in India, my first time in Imphal. So far I've been here one day. It's been an amazing experience, and just seeing all the faces here and the questions that you were asking earlier. Like I think. There's really good energy going on in the room today. So same for my presentation. I'm gonna go through and talk to you a little bit about education in the 21st century. But if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask. If you can raise your hand so that I can actually see, who's talking, because I think there's I'm trying to scan my vision 180 degrees. But also, like Lisa said, if you can keep it quite short, if your question's short, so that we can get to the point, because there's actually quite a lot going on in the slides as well. And I have my contact on here for later on if you want to ask me any further questions. Unfortunately, I don't think I'd be able. Do we have any teachers in the room? Okay, awesome. Students? Okay, you're outnumbered. Okay, so we've got teachers and students. So what I'm going to be talking today is about a practical approach to 21st century learning. But the people have already done a really good job introducing myself, so I'll just run through that again really fast. But the reason for the introduction, I just want you to see that anything and everything is possible. I think that's the big thing about the introduction, because I didn't graduate with an education degree, but here I am working with kids, working with children, and teaching 21st century skills to kids. So I just want you guys to keep that in your mind. Everything is possible, it only depends on how you view it and what you want to get out of your passion, what you want to get out of creating impact for other people. So let's get to know each other. So quickly, you can go next slide. I graduated from 2 places. So my bachelor's degree at Chulalongkorn University in Thailand. My major was actually in business. And again, Stanford Graduate School of Business, also in business. So you're starting to see there's no education there at all. So both times graduating from business, and now I'm working at Learn Corporation as head of business development and new product creation at Learn Corporation. So I think the word learn is probably the first place where you'll see something that's related to education kind of coming in, right? They have a better education through offline platforms as well as online platforms. So we also develop a lot of platforms online because we want education to be scalable to people rather than just being focused on certain aspects. So one part that I run, and it's very, very close to my heart, is Kid Hero. It's a school, I use the word school, but a lot of people say it's still like a tutorial school. So it's not Monday to Friday. We teach kids on the weekends. We teach kids whenever they are not in school. We will teach them all the time, anytime when they're not in school. And the reason being is because I think a lot of you here know that it's quite difficult to change the perception of your parents, right? Regarding maybe what it is that you wanted to learn in university, or the way that parents see education as education. There's certain things in education that you have to do to get a good education. And that's very difficult to change. So that's why instead of focusing on the Mondays to Fridays when people are in school, we focus out of school so that parents are more comfortable in sending the kids over to us. And what we do here is we use, do you guys know Robin Hood? Yes? Okay, so we use the Robin Hood model. What we do is we teach and we collect money from people who do have money. And then what we do is we teach kids computer science, how to code. But the interesting thing about teaching kids how to code is a lot of people are always like, oh, the kids are learning how to code. And I'm like, no, the kids do not learn how to code. They're coding to learn. And I think this is another thing that we'll elaborate on. The normal way of education right now, we're very focused on the knowledge that we give people, right? But in reality, what's more important in the future is actually the soft skills, the ability to work with other people. And I'll tell you, you'll see a bit more why that's what I'm saying. So before working in Learn Corporation, I was at a company called Santora Nakama. It is a startup studio. So before this, I was fully in technology. I was working in technology. I was flying around to a lot of places all over the world. and looking at like the new cutting edge technology that they have everywhere. One thing that we use a lot in Santora was a process called design thinking, which I got from when I was in Stanford. And for design thinking, one interesting thing is I teach design thinking to corporations in Thailand. So all of the banks, all of the really advanced companies in Thailand, I teach design thinking to them. And every time I teach design thinking to these corporations, they're always saying the same thing, like, why were we never taught this, like before, And I'm like, maybe it's because it wasn't there before. But the process of thinking was never taught, because everybody has always only been taught to memorize things rather than to understand things. And the design thinking process is a process that's used to create innovation within organizations. But if you think about the future, the kids of the future, I mean, we're actually quite lucky because you're probably all like over 18, right? So we will die a lot faster than the kids who are 5, right? So when we die a lot faster, what does that mean? It means that we don't have to face the future for as long as the younger kids. Now, if we're talking a lot about innovation, and we don't teach the kids how to innovate, how are they going to survive in the future, right? Especially if all the big companies are talking about innovation. So much that if you can go to the next slide, all these companies in America are applying the concept of design thinking into their organizations to create better products, more innovative products. So an example of innovation is the iPhone that a lot of you may have or may have seen. All of the smartphones that you have nowadays, that has gone through the process of design thinking to create those products. So companies now actually say innovate or die. So if you don't innovate fast enough, if you don't innovate fast enough, your company will die. And we've seen this happen so many times in the past. How many of you were born in time for disposable Kodak cameras when it was widespread? Yeah? Do you use that so much anymore? No, it's all like digital cameras, right? What else? Cassette tapes? Yeah? When you used to have to put your pencil in the cassette tape and do that to rewind, right? So you don't do that anymore, right? Because we don't have cassette tapes anymore. It's all CDs, DVDs, everything's MP3, everything's online. And those companies were the companies that don't innovate. So now the thing is like, okay, so I'm talking about education. Why am I talking about companies? Because in the end, you're being educated to go into the workforce. And right now, the level of education or the concept of education that we have right now was to cater to the workforce 100 years ago. So you're at a Global Shaper like event, right? I think you might have heard often about like the 4th Industrial Revolution, right? The current education system that we have right now is created for the 3rd Industrial Revolution, which was approximately 100-something years ago. And now we're in the 4th, but we're still trying to use the 3rd Industrial Revolution to teach the kids nowadays. So that's one reason why it's not going to work. And on my journey of going around the world looking at technology, I happened to pass upon an interesting article, right? Any of you know what this game is? Anybody? Checkers? Okay, so it's kind of like checkers. There's a hand up there. Yes? Checkers. Checkers. Okay, so everybody's calling it checkers. So, yes and no, I guess. I don't know, maybe it's the same thing. So it's a game called Go. I don't know if it's like Chinese, like the old version, super old version of like checkers, right? And Go is considered as one of the most difficult board games that we currently have in the world at the moment. Because for every single move, you can do around like 100 to 1,000 moves. There's like many different ways that you can win this game, right? And the thing is, people who are like world champions in Go have been training for like 10, 20, 30 years, to be really, really good at Go. Now, the article that I was reading said that there was Google created it's called artificial intelligence. So it's like an artificial human mind that won the world champion of Go. Wow. Now I want you guys to have a guess. How long do you think it took for that computer to beat the world, how long did he have to train and understand the game to beat the world champion? Anybody have any guesses?
Maybe 2-3 years.
2-3 years? Okay, 2-3 years. Anybody more or less or anything?
2 years.
2 years? Any else? Okay. How about a month and a half? How about a month and a half? Now what's even more interesting is after a month and a half, what they did is that computer won the world champion, right? The guy's name, he's Korean, his name is Lee Sedol. You can look that up on the internet. This was, I think, back in 2016 that happened. Now Google is like, oh, well, if we can beat the world champion, and if this computer can beat the world champion, let's create another computer that can beat this computer. Wow. Okay? So that's Google, right? That's Google for you. So it's like, okay, let's get another computer that can beat this computer. So they built another computer. The first one was called AlphaGo. The next one was called AlphaGo Zero. Can you guess how long it took AlphaGo Zero? How long it trained for to beat AlphaGo? So it's gonna be less than 2 years, right? Do you think it's gonna be more than a month and a half or less than a month and a half?
I heard about 8 hours.
8 hours?
Maybe a week.
Okay, about a week. So 8 hours. 8 hours was all it took for. Oh no, wait. Sorry. It was a bit more than 8 hours for AlphaGo Zero to beat AlphaGo.
1 month.
Less than a month. It was only a few days. So I think I have it. That's 90 days for AlphaGo. If you can go to the next slide. To the next slide. 3 days for AlphaGo Zero to beat AlphaGo. 3 days. Okay. And then Google was like, oh, well, if this computer can beat AlphaGo, then I think we'll create another computer to try to beat AlphaGo Zero. Okay? So they did. Can you guess how long it took for that computer to beat the one that beat everything so far?
1 minute.
Okay, maybe a bit too short. So 8 hours. 8 hours was all it took for the new computer to train to do something else. Now, why am I telling you this? So if a computer can do something that a person like us, has been training 20 years for, and can do that in 8 hours, so what does that mean for our future? It looks pretty dim, right? It looks pretty like, oh my god, how am I gonna find a job in the future? And that's the thing, because a lot of the things that you are doing now, or you are training to be in the future you won't have those jobs anymore. So I graduated my bachelor's degree in accountancy. Now in Australia and New Zealand, they don't have accountants anymore. So if I was in Australia or New Zealand, I won't have a job. If I was doing my old job. But you see where that's taking us? So, I mean, for us, that already seems pretty difficult, right? But what about the kids in the future? There's something called 21st century skills. And I think a lot of you in this room might have heard about it. It's only starting to be trendy 20 years after we've gone into the 21st century. Okay, but 21st century skills is something that now a lot of schools and a lot of in the future, the smartest person in the room is going to be someone with a smartphone in their hand. And whoever can Google faster, right? So if I can Google fast, then I'll be smarter for 5 seconds than all of you, because I Googled 5 seconds faster than all of you. But if that's the case, and your life depends on a smartphone, then what is it that we need to teach our kids? What we need to teach our kids are actually soft skills. The education system actually kills creativity. I see a lot of you nodding, right? And I was like, yep. The current education system kills creativity. How often has it been that maybe at a younger age, you said something, but the teacher said, well, never faced climate change like this severe before. And if the world has never faced climate change this severe, no one has ever found a way to solve it, right? So if no one, through good logic, have not found a way to solve it, then perhaps you need the creative generation, and there's creativity. I can send these slides over to you guys. I think it's a bit small to see, so I can send these slides over in a bit. But So these 4 skills are very much needed for the kids in the future to survive. And not just the kids in the future, but actually you guys as well. Because a lot of people are still in university, right? Okay. Are you on the path to getting a job yet? Yes, some no. So it's interesting because I'm wearing 2 hats, right? One of an educator and one as head of business at a corporation. And believe it or not, the 4 skills that I look for in people that are working in my corporation right now fit this. Personally for me, I barely look at grades. I talk to the person and I see how they think, what their logic is. I see if they can be creative, if they have new ideas that they have. Because if we're creating new products, we need new ideas. So for all of this, it leads on. So there's a reason why we're talking about 4 C's, because it leads on for you guys or for the kids of the future to get their jobs as well. And as of now, this is how it is. But in the future, this may also change. You never know, right? Because then again, this is skills for the 21st century. Maybe, in 100 years in the future, there's going to be a different set of skills that are needed. But this is what we're going to be talking about for now. And going into critical thinking, we're talking a lot about a certain thing called computational thinking. I'm not sure if you've heard of computational thinking before. I'll just go really quickly through all of them. So, computational thinking is like the basic for logical thinking in everyone. And the thing with computational thinking is it's how you can break down really big problems into smaller problems so that you don't feel demotivated in solving those problems, right? So how do you break down a big problem into smaller problems? Now you might think, well, how is that relevant to me? It's relevant in every single aspect. Have any of you ever, do you run projects in your university, or do you, yeah, a lot of people are nodding, you're running projects. So when you're running a project, how many different aspects of a project is there? 1? Too many to count? Too many to count, right? So that's decomposition. That's the first part of computational thinking. You need to break down your big project into lots of little chunks, right, that you can deal with. So I mean, when I'm in my company, one way that I always like to break down my project is like, okay, so then there's the operational side of things. There's the marketing that needs to be done. And then there's all of like the nitty-gritty education content that needs to be created, right? So you need to break it down. And then when you break it down, you need to know where they merge. So that's the first part of computational thinking. Now the second part is a thing called pattern recognition. And everybody's like, that sounds like a nursery school. It starts in nursery, but it's actually really, really relevant for everyone here right now as well. Because so often I've had people come up to me and be like, okay, so this is all the information that they found. Now what? And I'm like, well, now you need to analyze that information. And they're like, but how do we analyze the information? And I'm like, you need to look at the patterns. You need to look at what's similar and what's different, right? Because if you don't look at what's similar and what's different, then all you have is a big chunk of information everywhere that you don't know what to do with. So the thing is, a lot of people were not taught to recognize patterns at a young age. And so when they grow older, they don't understand the concept of pattern recognition. And they think it's not relevant in their everyday life. So, as a kid, do you guys get to read nursery rhymes a lot? Yes, okay. So nursery rhymes are actually a very good way to teach pattern recognition in kids. But if you only read them, you're not going to teach them very much pattern recognition. But if you read them and then you show them the spelling of the words, what they can see is, so let's say, you know the cat in the hat? The cat in the hat sat on a mat and he saw that. So there's all that AT something, right? CAT, MAT. And when the kid sees that, he's like, oh, so the two end letters are AT, so that's the at, and the front is whatever you want to put there. So then you can ask them questions like, how do you spell fat? You know, and they're like, oh, F. Okay, so FAT, right? So then, by doing that, you're teaching them to think more than just memorize how things are spelled, which is what happens to a lot of kids nowadays. So I have like 3 nephews, not all in 6th grade. What I'm actually doing next year is I'm taking them out of school for like a year just to be with me, and I'm just gonna teach them when I'm working. Thank God their mom allowed me to do that. But like that's the thing, because they've been only taught to memorize since they were at a young age. Even in Thai, like the spelling is similar. You also have nursery rhymes. But instead of teachers teaching kids to see how it rhymes, they're only like, no, that's how you spell it. And that's how you spell it, and that's it. So yeah, like these are things that you can, take if any of you are in schools or have kids at your house or have like siblings, like you can use these tricks and like just get them to understand this more. So going back to computational thinking, the third part of it is what we call abstraction. So abstraction is like seeing all the information and being like, oh, this isn't necessary, so you throw this part away. Okay? Because so often, do you ever see someone who's trying to squeeze everything into like an equation, and it's like, but you don't need that in the equation. Like you can throw that away, and they're still like trying to put that in. So that's when you don't use abstraction on trying to understand what's needed and what's not. And the last part is called algorithm design. So algorithm design is just knowing what needs to come first, what needs to come second, so that people can think like more creatively. So the way I teach, it sounds really complex, right? Because the word algorithm is something you learn in like university or like in high school. But I actually teach algorithm design to 5-year-olds. And it's really easy to teach algorithm design to 5-year-olds. You can ask them like, hey, so, what do you do before you leave the house in the morning? And oftentimes they'll be like, okay, so you wake up. And I'm like, okay, wake up. So can you write, or we'll write it down for them. So then they wake up. And then what do you do after you wake up? They go to the bathroom, take a shower, take a shower, brush their teeth, and eat breakfast. Now, here's an interesting thing. Who here eats breakfast before brushing their teeth? Who here brushes their teeth before eating breakfast? Okay, so you have both, right? Now, you see, if you're teaching kids to be creative in the future, you can't tell them stuff like, oh, you eat breakfast before brushing your teeth? Like, that's not allowed. Guys, everybody does. Well, not everybody. I do that. A lot of people in this room does that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's not like, you can't just say, this is not what you do. Because that's also killing creativity within the kids, right? You need it, like, for stuff like that, you'll be like, okay, so it doesn't matter if you brush your teeth first, or eat breakfast first, and then brush your teeth. But some things do matter. So when they start saying they go to school and they need to get dressed, I was like, okay, so then how do you get dressed? A lot of them will be like, okay, we'll put on our shirt, we'll put on our pants, and I'm like, and underwear? Do you put your underwear on top of your pants and go to school like Superman? Or what happens, And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I put my underwear on first, and then my pants. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you see? So there are certain things that do need to follow a certain order. But there are a lot of other things that don't need to follow a specific order. And I'm like, okay, so then, other than your pants, you need to put on shoes? And they're like, from knowing that underwear scenario, they're like, yeah, we put on shoes, but we need to put on socks first, right? Because if you put on your shoes and then you put on your socks, what happens? Then you have a lot of dirty socks, right? All around your house. So you need to put on your socks before you put on your shoes. And just simple things like that, the kids then start to understand that there are certain parts that needs to be done before and then after, but not all of it really matters on what happens. So another thing is like, if you ever ask, if anybody has a sibling at home, one good way to get them to know about this is take them to the market. And rather than you pay, you give them the money to pay. And what will happen is like, do you need to give, that's okay, but maybe the second one doesn't really make sense. So that helps a lot. And what we do to help, I didn't think it was like a brain challenging thing, but actually it is, and it puts together all the components of computational thinking, because it has to be 1 to 9, right? And you know that every box has to be 1 to 9, right? So just that, your brain is already computing. And most of the kids, this will be like their first class, so they're like super scared of us at the beginning, because they're like, are you gonna be like in school, you know? And we're just like, no, okay, like, what do you see? Just tell us what you see, you know? And oftentimes they'll be like, starting to realize that there's like 1 to 9, 1 to 9, and that also increases like their computational thinking. And I wrote here, it's pre-class meditation, because also one really important thing to be able to learn well is to have your focus at the very beginning of the class. And so often we don't do that, right? So here's an example. When I'm not teaching the kids, the privileged kids, going to like the underprivileged classes and teaching them, sometimes like the kids have been like, you know, been hit by their parents in the morning. There's a lot going on in their head. And immediately you're coming in, they're coming into class and you're like, okay, you know, and like, this is what you're doing. And their mind's like not there. I'm gonna do it question by question, you know, but these kids are like, oh, who cares? You know, let's do all of it. And that's if you reflect that back into real life, like those are the winners in real life, right? Because in the end, like, if you own a company, do you want like, oh, the guy that does work really, really slow but follows all the rules, you know? Or do you want the guy who's like, oh, can like think really well, and you know, he'll think up of stuff on he or she will think up of stuff on their own and be able to come back to us and say, hey, I have this really good project, like, you know, what do you think about it? So you see like the difference already, right? And that's, like said, even though we're talking about education, it might seem like, you know, to the kids, but it's relevant to everyone in this class as well. The next part is communication. So for communication, there's actually a lot of things to be taught. And communication is actually probably one thing that I teach a lot in organizations. So if you can go to the next slide. So I'm actually going to ask you guys to do a little workshop with me just right now as well regarding communication. Because so often in life, we're talking about like, oh, people don't communicate properly, you know? But you know why people don't communicate properly? Because we don't actually listen to listen. We listen to reply, right? And so often we do that. So what I'm going to do, BB, and what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask A to talk for 2 minutes. Okay, I'm going to give you a heading, but at the heading you'll probably all like. So I'm going to give you a heading, you're going to talk for 2 minutes. A is talking, right? B, your job is to listen, okay? And when I mean listen, I'm going to make this pretty forceful so that you understand it initially, but hopefully you'll practice over time and it won't feel so forced. But the only thing B can say in 2 minutes is, yeah, okay, that's it. Okay, you've got 3 words that you can use. Okay, that's it. That's all you're going to get to use. Because the thing is, oftentimes someone's talking and immediately you have something going on in your head. You're like, right? And in the end, you don't get what they were trying to say. Yeah? So usually, you guys are lucky. I don't have much time, so I'm giving you 2 minutes. But usually when I do this in organizations, I do 4 to 5 minutes. And some people like suffer so much. Like they just sit there like smiling at each other for like 3 minutes, you know? So I'm giving you guys 2 minutes, and let's see if we can also improve our communication skills. So I'm going to time you from my phone. The title is, a lot of you are here for like a cause or for like impact, right? What's your cause? I'm giving you 2 minutes. Like, what's your cause? It can be anything, like why you're interested in this, you know. And let's say it's a good chance for you to make new friends. Hopefully, if you're sitting next to someone you've never known before. So, giving you guys 2 minutes. Ready? Oh, here's another thing. I see some people like taking up pens and everything. So like, calm down. Okay. So the thing is, I would usually, when I do this for organizations, I say like, okay, you can note down, but not your first time around. Because the first time around, if you're trying to note down things, what happens? Eye contact is not there. And oftentimes when your eye contact is not there, people don't know if you're listening or not, right? So for this time round, it's like eye contact to the person that you're listening to. And the reason why I said you can do like, yeah, okay, is because it's to show that you're still listening, you know? Because have you ever talked to someone, they're like dead still? And you're kind of like, is he still alive? Like, is he breathing? You know, so just, you know, kind of give that response so that people know that you're still breathing and doing well. And what I'm gonna ask you guys to do after that, listen, but after you listen for 2 minutes, B will do a summary of what A said. But you're gonna give back that summary in 30 seconds. Okay? But you're not allowed to write anything down, okay? Listen, and you know it's like when you're doing mental math when you're a kid? It's like, but you're not saying anything out, so like just do that like, you know, in your head as well. So 2 minutes, ready? Ready? Okay, so 2 minutes, ready, go. Guys, it's really quiet. Okay, okay, there we go. You have 1 minute left. Okay, time's up. 30 seconds. Give it back, 30 seconds before you forget. We'll clap later. 30 seconds first. B. Okay, 10 seconds left. Okay, time's up. Give a round of applause to yourself. Okay, how did that feel?
Horrible. I want to change my partner.
You wanna? Someone wants to change his partner. So, why? Why do you want to change your partner?
Because I know him for 2 years and he's so silent.
Okay, so this is an example of like no, no, yeah, no, okay, right? So you're like, oh, is he still listening? Who else? Anybody have? What was the feeling? Who was talking?
Excited.
Excited? Okay. Excited to talk or excited to listen?
Excited to talk.
Excited to talk. Okay. And
I was quite irritated by her response. She kept on responding, yeah, okay, yeah.
So very, very strict to the schedule. Yeah, okay. So did anybody finish before 2 minutes? What happened when you finished before 2 minutes? You spoke too fast. And some people, what then happened? Were you just like sitting there and smiling?
Yeah, waiting.
Waiting, right? Waiting for the time. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about this as well, but overall it's also regarding getting out of your comfort zone, right? So education is all about, if we're talking about education for the future, it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. And oftentimes we'll have people who don't like to talk a lot. And when this exercise comes, it's like 30 seconds and they're done. And they're like, you know, and then there's people who are like, they can talk forever. I can talk forever, you know. But do that, we get stuck doing things that we don't like. So as a university lecturer, one thing that I get so often with the students that I teach, they come up to me and they say, well, you know, I've been in this faculty for 3 years and like, I don't really like it. And then I say, okay, like, do you want my answer as a university lecturer or as like a sister? Because it's very different, you know. And then like, as a sister, I would say like, then what is it that you really like, you know? And if I were you, as a sister, I would tell you to like, then if you know already what it is that you like, then there's no point being here. Even if you've already been through 3 years, and if you're really, really passionate about this one thing that you think you like, there's no point for you to be here. Or is there another way that you can go to make that work? But often the answer comes that, well, their parents don't agree with it, right? And if we're talking about your parents not agreeing it, or this actually comes back to 4 C's as well. Because it's the way you communicate, it's the way you need to understand your parents so that you can get what you want from them as well, right? So you see where this goes? It's not only for kids, it's not only for K to 12, it's not only until you finish high school. It's all the way up until the time you die. I've actually run a workshop in Bangkok. So I have many different hats, right? One of the workshops that I ran is on a thing called Ikigai. I don't know if you've heard of it before. So it's a Japanese mentality, which is like the reason for waking up every day. Like, do you have a reason for waking up every day? Do you wake up and you're like, yeah, like I want to get to work, you know? Or do you wake up and you're like, So we actually did a workshop. I did a workshop, and that was actually for university students so that they know what it is that they want. I actually had a university professor from another university come in to the same workshop. And it was a 2-day workshop. At the end of the 2-day workshop, he walked up to me and he said, I still get goosebumps when I talk about this. He walked up to me and he said, oh, well, you know, now I know what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to university tomorrow and resign. And this guy was like 50. But he said, all through the 50 years of his life, he's been doing something that he never really wanted to do. And it's only then that he realized that he didn't want to do this anymore. So you guys are still younger. So knowing faster might then stop the same thing happening to you when you're 50 or whatnot, right? But then that comes back to computational thinking, to being able to communicate to people about what it is that you think, and so forth. Okay? Okay. So just going, we've got not a lot of time left. A few tools that I use to teach my kids. So this is something called Scratch. It's free. If you have a computer and you have internet, or even if you don't have internet, you can download like somewhere where you do have internet and then take it to where like there's no infrastructure. But this is something called a playground for kids. It sounds really weird. It's on the computer, but it's a playground. And the reason why I say it's a playground is because with this tool, you can create anything. The kids can create animations, they can create games, just by using this tool. And this tool comes, like, I've screen capped, like, people have already created algorithms, but if you actually open up the program, there's nothing on it. There's just that cat with no background, and he's just standing there in the middle of the left-hand side of the screen. And what you do is you create the world that you want to create. And why is this important? Like letting kids be creative, letting kids create what it is that they want to create. You guys know Pokemon, right? Pokemon? So my nephew, he can memorize 250 different types of Pokemon. What their stats are, how they evolve, if this Pokemon finds this Pokemon and they fight, what's the best way that they can win. But if you ask him to memorize the periodic table, nothing. Okay? So why is that? It's a difference in motivation, right? When it's something that they're motivated about and they want to learn from, they'll do it really well. But if they're totally not motivated to do it, like no matter what you give them, they'll just be like, you know. So it's the same. When you get people to create something from nothing, their motivation level increases like crazy. Have you ever made something, maybe like, let's say you make an omelet, okay? And then I ask the world famous chef to create an omelet, just like yours. And then I ask you, like, which one do you value more? You know, the weird thing is, most people will say, like, theirs is better. Not that chef, mine. Because you created it on your own, and that's why you give it more value. Same with kids. If kids can create something on their own, they give it more value, their level of motivation will be off the charts. I've actually had to make kids go home. Like, dude, enough, go home, okay? Like, it's 5, it's 6, it's 6:30, your mom has been waiting for an hour and a half. Like, you can come back tomorrow and continue with this. So I think that's another challenge. How do we do it so that kids are that motivated all the time to learn, right? Okay, so just next slide. This is another little game that we did with the kids, and this is also like computational thinking. So on the piece of paper, it's like a dinosaur. But this dinosaur is made from little blocks that they have to color. And we only give them one sheet of paper and all of them have to like be around that block and try to color it in. So this is teaching them collaboration, how for them to work together, how they should plan it so that in the end you finish the dinosaur picture in the fastest time and no one like pokes each other in the eye with pencils, you know. So like this is like an example that you can also use. So the workshop after this will also be something similar to this. We'll get you guys to create like classes that you can take back to your community as well. Okay, so next slide. One more. This is creativity, like said, super important. So IDEO is the company that, you know, is like the thinker of design thinking, right? I talked a lot about design thinking. And they actually wrote a book called Creative Confidence. Because it's so important. Not just creativity, but creative confidence. It has to come together. Because if you only have creativity but you never let it out, is that doing any benefit for the world? You're like, oh man, I know I'm super creative, but I'm never gonna tell anybody. You know? Like that's not gonna help very much, right? So as well as being creative, you need to be confident about it. You need to be able to, you know, debate to people like why you think this idea works, but also be humble enough to take feedback from other people and be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea, so then maybe I should change it a certain way. So teaching creative confidence, how can we do that? If you go to the next slide. One thing I like to do with the kids is give them like a piece of A4 paper with just circles or just squares or just some random shape. And what I ask them to do is like, okay, I'm gonna give you a minute. Draw as many things that's related to a circle as you can. Okay? And I'll tell them to start. And if you can go to the next slide. So then they'll start drawing like random things. So here I have like, this is my attempt on computer to draw like a seal, right? So there's a seal in the top left hand. At first it was a cat. And it was too difficult to draw the ears, so I was like, it can be a seal. Ah, see, creative confidence, right? And the second one is pizza. And I've had this in my class. So pizza is like, it's a circle, right? And they split it into eight different sections. And then he draws the exact same thing in the next slide, in the next one. And I'm like, so you're drawing two pizzas? And he's like, no, this is a pizza, this is a wheel. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense, you know? So you see, it's up to, and you can't tell them like, no, you can't draw the same thing twice. Because what's that doing? You're killing their confidence and you're killing their creativity, right? You can't create collaboration. You can't create critical thinking. And if you're trying to put something that you can't put into a box, in the end the box will break. So you might as well acknowledge that the box will break now and understand that you need to grade kids in a, not comparing them to other people, but just seeing every day how you can make them a better kid than they are before. And I think like that's it. Like sometimes we're overthinking things too much. Maybe in the end education is just how everyone can grow and learn and be a better person than they are right now. And maybe that's all we need for the future as well. So, next slide, last slide. if I remember correctly. No, next one. One more slide? Yep, so hopefully we can improve education for ourselves and the kids together. If there's anything, you want to know, any worksheets you want to get off me, email me, so that's doro@learn.co.th, and that's my LinkedIn. And thank you very much for today for having me, and hopefully this was a useful session for you.
Thank you, Dora, for the wonderful session. If you're open, we would like to take some questions from the audience. Yeah, we won't take many questions because there's another workshop by her after the second session. So if there is anyone who would like to put forward any quick questions, yes, that lady.
There is a say when the kids, there is a saying, not all the kids are same. So when we teach them, the teachers and students, when we teach them, some kids are very naughty, and they say that no physical punishment must be given to the children. So then the elders say that when they are out of hand, so naughty, then sometimes you need to beat them. There's some saying like that. And what do you think about that?
Physical punishment.
Okay, so I think if you were talking to an adult and they didn't make sense, would you beat them? No. This is a serious question, right? Because in reality you won't beat, it won't be like, oh, I'll punch you in the face, right? So I think it's the same for kids. And the reason, if you're talking to adults and you don't do that, what do you try to do when you're talking to an adult and they don't have the same viewpoint as you? I think a lot of people will try to understand, right? So I think that's the same with kids. But often we see kids as we see kids as kids, and we think they don't have a lot of things in their mind. But remember the deep listening that we did a moment ago? Listening to listen? I think if you're able to do that with the kids, you'll start to realize a lot of the issues that they have is actually because of something that's happened maybe in their family or, And then when you understand them more, it's really weird, but I've had cases like this where just sitting down with them and talking to them and just not even talking, just listening to them. The next day they come into class and they change as a person because they trust us more than before because they feel that there's someone that they can talk to. And this is even little kids, 5, 6-year-olds, So I think I don't believe in hitting kids, but I do believe in counting to 10, taking a deep breath, counting to 10 and being so why did you do that? Can you tell me why you did that? Just so that you understand it more. Yeah.
Okay, man here, center. Here.
Okay, can I, you and then you? Okay, yeah,
just two of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's I'm overboard right now. I'm very happy that I've been given this opportunity to be hearing all these things from you. And it's we are given so much knowledge and we are ready to implement everything. But then one thing I really want to know is that being a business degree holder and an educator, is there any interdisciplinary approach between the two? Can you please explain that?
So that works within the two, right? So I think I think it's the mindset. How can you create kids so that they don't have fear? And it's funny because I actually use that a lot in my team as well. So the team that I run right now, I have a team of around 20 people that I look after. And the 20 people are split into pairs. And then these pairs run new businesses. And initially these people came from other organizations and they were not able to do that. And oftentimes I'll reflect with them and I'll be so why were you not able to do that in your own company, but why that you're here now, you can do it? And the only thing they said to me is because you give us playing space. So, and whenever we do something wrong, you don't scold us for it, but you try to help us find a way out of it and to make the next better product. So I think by doing that, it goes to the same, right? Build, measure, learn. If you put that mindset into kids, but you also need to help facilitate for them to believe that they can continually do that. I think
yes, ma'am. And being a business degree holder, is there anything like interdisciplinary approach between being that educator? Do you apply any business knowledge to this education field? Like, interdisciplinary approach between the two.
So, as in like using business and education, right? So that's my job, my full-time job right now. So creating education businesses, understanding what the need is, and just creating as many businesses as we can to help. Right now, just Thailand, but hopefully not so long we'll get the CLMV countries. Hopefully we can come here and see what we can do.
We're really inspired, ma'am.
Hopefully, you know, you guys can do it too here. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Miss, I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
First one is, as you told before, there is a hearsay in the very near future, AI might replace most of the workers.
Yeah.
Actually, we have a threat of jobless and unemployment. I don't really want to happen that. So, do we need to learn coding in order to develop creativity? And the second one is, it's too simple for you. I'm afraid I don't think you do got such complexity, such an education system of complexity, computational thinking. So, are your kids being smarter than you when you taught them?
Yeah. Okay. So, so the first one, do we need to learn coding? I actually think it's weird, but no. I teach that, but like I said, the reason why I teach that is I teach kids to code to learn, so that they understand the thinking rather than the coding. And I think the reason why I teach kids to learn is so that they have that level, like the critical level of thinking. But I think actually what's more important in the future, and I think the World Economic Forum just released a paper not so long ago saying that actually humanities will be something that's more important in the future than like all the science and everything. Because in the end, it's harder for AI to replicate something that's like more on the art. But we're starting to see it though. Like AI are creating music, they're creating like art pieces, but it's more difficult for them to be able to like touch on the humanities side of things rather than the science part of things. So I think it's a no. You don't really need to learn it, but if you do, then and you're really good at it, then there's a chance that in the future you will be programming these programs, right? So I think that's the first question. The second question, I don't know if they're smarter, but I know they're better children, and I think they're better. So I don't know if you probably don't see my shirt very. So the name of the organization that I'm running now, I call it Kid Hero, right? And the reason why I call it Kid Hero is because I think we're too focused on kids being smart, when in reality what we need in the future is kids being smart and good. So like in reality, every kid is a hero in their own right, right? But so often like that hero inside of them is suppressed by people all around them, usually adults. So I don't know, I wouldn't be able to fully say like, oh yeah, they're a lot smarter than me now, you know. But they definitely ask better questions than when I was a kid. So they're more confident. Like I said, I don't know if the smarter part would, and I don't know how smart I was as a kid. So I don't know about that, but I definitely think like overall, like how happy they are with like, you know, what they're doing. How much they care for other people. I think I see that a lot more than when I was a kid, at least. So I think, does that answer your question? Okay. Cool.
Ma'am, I'm really sorry, but since there is a time constraint and since there is again another workshop with Dora, so you can ask your questions during the workshop. It's going to be an interaction session.
So after the workshop, and I'm here until tomorrow. Not here until tomorrow, but like in this area until tomorrow. So if there's any questions after that, like just feel free to walk over, say hi, and ask. Okay?
The workshop is over, yours to ask questions. So please bear with us until then. Thank you, Deborah. Before you go down, we would like to show our respect and appreciation for that wonderful, session. May I call upon our founding curator, Mr. Armstrong, for me to kindly come on stage and felicitate Ms. Dora.
Excuse me. Would you please show up the email once again?
Only 30 seats. So if there is anyone who is interested in attending the workshop, please register your name at the registration desk before you leave. This workshop is going to be conducted by Ms. Bhavna Luthra. So it's going to be a thorough, in-depth one, and I hope people who are in the environment field will not miss it. Yeah, and before I call upon our next speaker, I think a little birdie told me there is going to be an icebreaker session, if I heard it right. Is Mr. Chinglemba in the room? Yeah, and may I request all our participants to kindly turn off your mic.
Yeah, turn off your mics, guys. Okay, great. So, I think we're having a good time. You guys learning? You guys enjoy? Yes. Okay, so Temi's gonna get ready for the dance. I'm just kidding. Okay, great. So guys, let's do like this. Let's stretch a little bit. I want you guys to have fun and enjoy this. So what I want you guys to do is get up, guys. Come on, let's go. Everybody get up. Let's go. Stand up, guys. Let's go. Dinesh, hit the music, please. So we're gonna get our energy on. Is that cool? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. So for the boys, I wanna ask you.
One second. Control room lady do volume to like a Thank you.
Okay, great. So we're gonna do a very, very, very fast experiment. Okay. All right, great. Okay. Okay, Dinesh, can you hold it? All right. I like it. He's dancing, man. Okay, good. So we're gonna do a very quick experiment. Okay, everybody, follow me. So what I want you guys to do is, if you guys can hear it, no kuto smarty to. Hold your hand like this. Great, awesome, amazing. Gotta cut your nails. Okay, so what I want you guys to do, this is an experiment. This experiment is done in Stanford University to prove something. Okay, so we're gonna study this. I did this research and found it really interesting. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is put your hands like this. Normally, when I say, so when you close, don't go coming in. Normally, actually, some of your tongue will be on top, some of your top. Okay, so we're gonna do this 3 times. Okay, shake your body back. You ready? Switch your hands. You guys ready? Yeah! Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Okay, thank you. So, I think without further delay, the time has come to call upon our next speaker. But before I call out his name, let's have a look at his profile.
I'm going to be a little conventional. I cannot stand out there because my stomach is a little bit bigger and wider after the sumptuous lunch. And thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. And I know it's the lunch time, although you had such a wonderful icebreaker, but afternoon siesta is a very important component of our human life. So before I start off, let me just give a little background of what I do, where I am from. So my name is Deep Jyoti Sonu Brahma. As you can read, it's there are 4 names in one person's name. And when I speak with people, they ask me, why do you have 4 names? I said, so that I feel the importance of 4 people. So it's not that actually. Sonu is my mother's surname. She is from Arunachal, and Brahma is my father's surname, and that's why my name is Deep Jyoti Sonu. My father is from Assam, and my parents started this tradition of keeping both the parents' surname along. So my daughter now is Navya Sarda Sonu. I'm married to a Punjabi, and my wife's surname is also included in my daughter's name. So my mother's surname and my wife's surname are there in my daughter's surname now. So that's a little Chotusa tradition that we would like to start in our family, and we have already started. And I'm hoping when my daughter marries somebody from Africa, she ensures that my wife's surname is kept there in the daughter's name. Okay, so I have been in the development sector for almost about 15-20 years now, and I did not intend, I had no intention of coming into the development sector. In fact, when we were growing up in Assam, and many of you might know and probably are aware that during the 80s and 90s, Northeast had a very tough time, very violent time. So we grew up during those periods, and many of our many young people who were growing up with us had perished during those violent period. Educationally, I did manage to get into a medical college, but I soon dropped out of it because I thought it was not something that I enjoyed. And rather than spending 5 years in a hell, I thought it's better to drop out. But I still felt bad that I wasted a medical college seat. Somebody more deserving could have taken that seat. Then I went to Delhi to study psychology. I don't know why did I end up studying psychology, because I was not happy with medicine. My father was a doctor, so you can imagine the pressure of becoming a doctor was too much in the family. I studied psychology in Delhi, and unfortunately, when you tell people, other young crowd in college that you study psychology, they try to run away from you. They think you're psychotic. And I never had any girlfriend in college. Okay, so later on I went to Tata Institute of Social Sciences for my master's in education. In between I also managed to get an MBA degree. I don't know why I got all those degrees. I was interested in education, and that's where I thought I could contribute more. I was working in Delhi with several organizations looking on developing the capacity of young people, looking at building young leaders in the country, and also looking at education, specifically in the rural areas. And then about 6 years back, it's 8 years back, about 8 years back, I came back to Assam. Me and a couple of us, we started up this organization called Farm to Food Foundation. Please don't move. Just take it. Thank you. So we started up this organization called Farm to Food Foundation, and like in the presentation it was mentioned that we are looking at building farm and food entrepreneurs from the region, because farm and food is the local resource that we have, and we do not, ideally we should not be importing resources from outside, rather exporting our resources and our capacity and our products to outside so that we can earn more money. Apart from that, I also been mentoring about 60-70 organizations started by young people across the country. Some of them are out here in the Northeast itself, about 40-50 of them, and then about 10-20 outside the region, outside the Northeast. And they work in various spaces, from education to environment to rights to livelihood. My main focus, my skill is in education, and that's what I offer to this institute, where I go and help them design curriculum, train them in pedagogy, if they have certain objective and if they want to get some certain outcomes, and I help them designing how to develop the curriculum. Okay, so I'm here. Thank you, Armstrong, for inviting me here. We had chanced upon each other last month in Aizawl, and it was a privilege to hear Armstrong there. And okay, that was another program where I was mentoring a couple of organizations doing some wonderful work out here in the Northeast region, and some of, I think, Can Youth from Dimapur is here. They were one of the organizers of those events. Okay, so I'm going to talk about education. I'm going to talk about young people, because this Globe Shaper Summit is about involving young people and developing the leadership and capacity of young people. And of course, I'm going to talk about social institute, because social institutes like school, college, these are actually the prisoners. These are the prisons where young people like you are kept inside and fed educations, medicines and syringes and injections, saying that this is physics tablet, you eat it, this is mathematics tablet, you eat it, and you'll become worthy of working in Google. So I'll talk about social institute and how they are moving out of from their main role of being a social institute to becoming an economic institute. You know, interesting thing about our India, our country, is that I see out here. Either we can become one of the largest country with the largest population of educated and unemployed young people, or we can probably become one of the largest country with educated underemployed population. These are the two main challenges that I see in very, very recent future, that I can see in just a couple of years. That would be probably the situation that we would end up. So before I move into my presentation, I would like to share a chotu sa story. And you are free to sleep. It can be a bedtime. It will be a bedtime story, and it is about siesta, afternoon siesta. So my father, working in government sector for about 45 years, he finally retired, and he went back to his native village after 45 years. So when he went back, the village was not a village, it was more like a biggish village, kind of a smallish town. And the house where my father used to live had not many houses, again all retired people coming back after working outside for 30-40 years, now coming back and wants to settle here and probably die here. And my father used to, and my mother was also there, so their daily routine was they wake up in the morning, go out for walk, come back, have breakfast, go out and socialize, come back and have lunch, and then have the afternoon siesta, which is very important for my parents, for my father. So that was the ritual of that, and then the entire neighborhood was very peaceful, very quiet, because everybody was old, retired people, so there was no jhagara, nothing, no shouting. Probably people were, they wanted to settle there because they wanted to get out of noise. But just a few blocks ahead of my father's house, there was a school, and it was a secondary school. Senior secondary school, so class 11, 12 students used to study there. Every afternoon around 3 o'clock, when the school gets over, students used to walk out. Rather, they used to run out of the school. You must have create a ruckus while passing through that neighborhood. Now, afternoon siesta starts around 2:30, and around 3 o'clock when the school gets over, all hell used to get there, right in front of my father's house. He could not, nobody in the neighborhood could sleep because these 10 rowdy young boys were passing through that place, through that neighborhood. They were creating noises, nobody could sleep. And people were scared to talk to them because, who would want to talk to these young energetic boys, they might bash up these old people, so stay away from them. But my father, being my father, he wanted to do something about it. So one day he stood beside the gate at around 3 o'clock and he waited for these boys to come out of the school and create their usual ruckus in the neighborhood. So they came, they enjoyed, they were kicking, shouting, yelling, and suddenly one of them sees this old gentleman standing next to the gate. And then said, "Hey, see, that old man is standing there." And so they were all like a little shocked. Why is this old man standing here? So my father looked at them and said, hello, hi, young man, can I talk to you for 2 minutes? So these boys thought, okay, now this old man is going to give us gyan. But we will also give him our own versions of gyan. If he gives us gyan, then we'll give him back the double. So they went ahead and my father said, hello, it's such a pleasure to meet you guys. I have been working outside for 45 years, but I have never seen such a beautiful skill, such a wonderful skills like you guys have. You guys are the futures, Metallica, Black Dad, Bon Jovi, and who else, I can't remember the names, but all these people. And these boys were like, what, is this man gone senile? And he said, I have never heard such beautiful music ever. You guys have the skill to create music out of trash, out of noise. I feel you guys should reward it. And here is my 10 rupees to you guys. And my request is that every afternoon, whenever you're passing through this, please create this music. It's soothing, it's so soothing. And these boys were like, my God, we know that people get senile after 60, and we are actually witnessing somebody who's getting senile. Anyway, they took the 10 rupees and then walk away to glory. So that happened, that continued for about a couple of days. Every day they used to come, create ruckus, and my father used to give them 10 rupees, and they thought, buddha pagal ho gaya hai. Happy with the 10 rupees. This continued for a couple of days, and after a few days, then again at 3 o'clock the school got over and they came, all the boys came out and they were expecting that old man to give 10 rupees and they'll use that 10 rupees to buy chocolates and whatever they would like to spend on. So they saw this, my father was standing on the gate and they came, they shouted, they yelled and created their usual noise. And my father was very happy. Oh, what nice music, wow. And they came to my father. Okay, sir, we did our best to create the beautiful music for you. Now, can you give us the money? My father said, you know, boys, I survive on retired pension money, and this time my pension money has not arrived. But the moment it arrives, I promise to pay you guys, you know, but please continue your music. It's such lovely to hear, you know. And these boys were like, क्या करें? Okay, ठीक है, आज के लिए कर दिया हाँ, but tomorrow we want our money, okay? My father said, Pakka, I can write it on a bare, like khali piece of paper, on a stamp paper, I can write that I'll give you 10 rupees tomorrow. So, okay, so next day again came, these boys thought, okay, today we will get 20 rupees, you know, 10 rupees of yesterday, and then my father is standing there, and my father said, no boys, my pension still has not arrived. You know how government functions, you know, government officers are sitting here. You know how government functions, you know, it takes years for pension to come. Then the boy said, years? Ek saal wait karna hoga. Then the boy was like, what do you think? We are like, you are good for nothing or what? You can take us for granted. We are creating music and you are not paying. Rigid, curriculum is rigid, we cannot do much about it, but we can contextualize the pedagogy, how we teach numbers. We don't need to follow what is being followed in schools in Delhi or schools in London. We can contextualize. We can help children, probably ask them to count the number of trees that they can see outside their school. That can be the counting pedagogy. And therefore, at Farm to Food Foundation, we started off this Chotu Sa rural model of education. We thought that instead of copy pasting the urban model, let's try out something else. First, like I told you, we wanted to develop farm entrepreneurs. We spoke to lots of farmers, senior farmers, middle-aged farmers. Some were okay with it. Some people were not very okay with it. They thought, you know, people should get out of farming. Why should we come back to farming? And then we thought the best place to start off our work is in school. Let's work with young people. So what we did was help school children see a dream in these communities are one of the worst, they have one of the worst human development index. The tea garden community that we work in, it would be very rare to see somebody above the age of 45. 45 years is the maximum age that many of these people live. They perish after that. The life is so tough. So we help school children. I'm going a little faster. We have a Chotu Sa video. I can show you that. We help school children set up their own nutrition garden where they grow vegetables. Next slide, please. Where they grow organic vegetables, local vegetables. In Assam, by the way, we had this in Bihu. Bihu is the biggest festival in Assam. We had a tradition of serving 101 varieties of vegetable, which did not include potato, brinjals and cabbage of the world. No exotic vegetables. 101 varieties of vegetables. I don't know where are they. Not even in the museum they are there. You know. So we are trying to help young people grow some of these local vegetables. Also grow, so all the vegetables that they grow, they sell it to their school midday meal authorities. They also produce vermicompost and sells it to the nearby tea garden. And each of these students also has a savings account. They go and deposit their money. So this entire project is a Chotu Sa entrepreneurship project for these young students. Concept of soil management, they are learning the concept of area perimeter. You can see triangle, square and circle, rectangle. This is so simple. You know, I'm sure many of you would still be confused about the concept of area and perimeter. What is the difference between area and perimeter? These children would tell you that area is what the garden bed is, and perimeter is when you fence your garden. The concept of perimeter comes in the fencing part. Next slide, please. So slowly, the effect started trickling inside the community, inside the village, first from their house. So these children also went back and set up their own kitchen garden at home. Next slide, please. And they encourage their mothers to take care of it. So now mothers, since we are talking about nutrition and we are talking about vegetables, mothers were very encouraged to see their children eating vegetables. They were like, wow, my children are eating vegetables. And when you start eating vegetables, you start to take care of your own nutrition needs. And these mothers have also slowly got into green ventures like producing vermicompost, selling it to the nearby tea garden. Many mothers have formed SHG groups and they are selling vermicompost for lakhs of rupees. They are also engaged in poultry, in goatry, in dairy farming. So that's how, and slowly changing, impacting the agriculture pattern of their community, of their area. And slowly they are turning into agriculture entrepreneur. When we started off, people were saying that agriculture is only for people who are failure in life. But when we ended, everybody is saying, wow, agriculture is a profitable venture. So only switch was required was that instead of looking at agriculture from a very sustenance perspective, looking at agriculture from an entrepreneurship perspective. And that was the switch and which helped us get this small success. Next, I would like to show you a small video. Many of you might have seen it, and then we can have the questions.
A session is in progress. The students are being encouraged to talk about their dreams and ambitions. And through these discussions, the facilitators of Farm to Food are introducing the idea of eating healthy and being self-reliant to the students. Farm to Food Foundation works with schools in Assam to help young people to be entrepreneurs in farm and food related areas and imbibe the value of growing your own food. Students of 6th, 7th and 8th standards are taught to set up a nutrition garden in their school premises. Work for the garden starts with vermicompost preparation in the school. Children bring the required materials for vermicompost and prepare it themselves under the guidance of Farm to Food facilitators. A carefully crafted curriculum helps the students learn not only sustainable farming, but also science, maths, economics, and other soft skills. In the garden, the raised beds are made in different geometrical shapes, not just because it is fun, but also to help them learn the concept of measurements like length, area, volume, and so on.
আমি ফাৰ্ম টু ফুডৰ দ্বাৰা আমাৰ গণিত আৰু বিজ্ঞানত যিখিনি খেতিৰ লগত জড়িত বিজ্ঞানত যিখিনি পাঠ আছে তাৰো বহুখিনি ক্ৰিয়াকলাপ আমি হাতে কামে খেতি পথাৰত কৰিবলৈ পাইছো জোখ মাখৰ যিখিনি চেপ্টাৰ আছে দিক প্ৰস্ত সেইখিনি আমি নিজে হাতে কামে বাগিচাৰ ৰেসপেট বনোৱাৰ বাবে জুখিবলৈ ব্যৱহাৰ কৰিছো
Once the beds are ready, they sow the seeds. The seeds are usually collected through Bij Dan Yatra or seed donation in the village. This helps the children to connect with the elders in the community. Along with local seeds, they get guidance and help from the villagers. Local varieties of vegetables are promoted in the garden. They use the vermicompost that they have prepared in the garden. As the plants begin to grow, the garden becomes a science laboratory for the students. They learn about how plants grow and how sunlight, water, butterflies, bees, earthworms help them grow better and faster. Pests are kept away by using biopesticide, which they prepare using locally available material. Finally, the harvest season starts. Students are excited to reap the benefits of their labor. These vegetables are used to prepare the midday meal for the school. Through eating fresh, organic vegetables, the students are informed about the nutrient content of each vegetable grown and how each nutrient helps them stay healthy. Farm to Food Foundation envisions to build a prosperous and peaceful Northeast by promoting farm-based entrepreneurship. School Nutrition Garden is the first step towards this vision. This program gives the students the confidence to take up farming as a reliable source of profitable income and self-reliance. The scientific lessons imparted in the garden helps to develop their scientific temper and inculcate habits of curiosity and experimentation. They learn the essence of cooperation, leadership, planning and hard work during this journey. All this makes the children confident enough to grow up into their dreams and help create a prosperous Northeast.
Two of our students conference in Bangalore will be presenting about this program. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Sonu Brahma. Sorry, Dipjyoti Sonu Brahma. So, if there is anyone who would like to ask any questions, please raise your hands. We won't be able to take many questions, but yeah, we will take few. Raise your hands, please. Where are you?
Yeah, there.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Sarah here. I want to know something about it. You in your school that you have to hear for organic farming. So how can we benefit? How far did you get benefits for the organic farming? And in these days, the technologies were being very advanced. That we are going. How will we train the students that in order to get a proper knowledge in regarding with the organic farming, and will you implement more theories or practical to the students regarding the organic farming? That's all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The bit about technology is that technology will always be growing faster than we can imagine. So there's no way we can probably compete with technology. But what, like even Dora was mentioning, is that we can use our heart, our head, and our hand to become better than technology. Organic farming is not very exotic. It is very, very simple. Some of our corporates have made it sound very exotic. In fact, organic farming is the kind of traditional farming that we in our villages used to do and are still doing. It is just that we have been now fed and we are too lazy to produce our own fertilizers. We are too impatient to wait for the soil to regenerate. That's why we put lots of fertilizers in the soil. So what we have been doing is, instead of, so I'm not an agriculture expert, but there are people in our team who are organic farmers themselves. And we invite the local farmers to come and give the Gyan Dan to these students. So it's our local farmers who have been doing traditional organic farming coming and sharing the techniques of doing farming, rather than I being, going and giving them the Gyan. So that way what is happening is the gap between, the distance between the community and the school is also now reducing. now people, the farmers also feel that they have something to contribute to the school's teaching and learning process, and that is very, very important. And also for students to see that a farmer, a local farmer whom he has probably seen for the past 6 years, also has so much knowledge, so much information, and so much can be learned from these farmers. So we have been asking the farmers to mentor our students rather than we mentor our students, and that also saves resources, and also bring in the idea of using the local resources. And organic farming is very simple. It doesn't require much money. For example, producing this vermicompost is very easy. In agriculture university, you would be trained to use the exotic variety of earthworm which we import probably from Australia. But what we have told students that we don't have money to give you to buy those earthworm, so you go and find your own earthworm. And our children can find out where they can find this earthworm, especially under the banana trees. They go and get a couple of them, put them in the vermicompost. So they're using these local resources. Similarly, for biopesticides, one of the observation skill that one needs to use here is there are certain leaves, there are certain plants that cow, goats, and other cattle do not eat. There are reasons behind it. And so we have been using these leaves, concoctions of these leaves, mixture of these leaves along with the neem leaves and other leaves which cattle do not eat to make biopesticides. So again, no money is involved. Yes, money is of course needed if you calculate the human resource cost, but it's very simple.
Thank you. One more question? Yes, the lady at the back.
Okay, thank you, sir, for giving the time. Here's my question. Geographically, our lands are hilly, so my question is, how can we start agriculture to flourish in our site?
Okay. Traditionally, even in the hilly areas, we still do our own farming. It's not that we have stopped doing farming. The idea is not to have 10 acres of land to do farming. The idea is to do smart farming rather than doing large farming. So even in a small patch of we are doing in about 400 plus schools in Assam, and some of these schools also comes under flood areas. So every 6 months they are under the water, so we cannot do much farming out there. But children are doing box farming, step farming. If you know the process of doing it, and if you have the problem solving approach, you can definitely do it. Specifically in the hill areas, it is very much required. If we start putting lots of fertilizers on our hill, all the hills will come down, and then we will find ourselves somewhere in the Indian Ocean.
One last question.
There were challenges from multiple spaces. One of the challenge was from parents. Parents would say, we are sending our children to school so that they can get away from farming, and you are teaching them farming inside the school. Where will our children run away now? So we tell them that, what do you want? What kind of future you want for your child? Or we want our children to become doctor, engineer, teacher, army, some profession, but farmer, no farming. It's all right. People have their own dreams for their children, but to become a doctor, engineer, IAS officer, or police officer, you need to study well first, right? You need to learn science and maths first, right? You need to learn it properly so that you can pass your examination, and then only you can become IAS officer or a doctor or an engineer, right? And we will help through this project, we will help your child to learn science and maths better, and at the same time eat vegetables. And the parents most of the parents were okay with this idea and excited about this idea. That science, of course, whenever you say science in village school, parents would be excited, we want our children to learn science better. From several schools later on. One of the challenge was from the teachers that, we are here to teach, not to do farming. Why are you pushing us to do farming? So you don't have to do farming. Farming would be done by the farmers, the parents who would come and help your children, who will mentor these students. What you would need to do is help link between the activities in the farming and the chapters that you're teaching. Say for example, if you have to teach the chapter of photosynthesis, go out in the field. When the children are in the garden, tell them about the process of photosynthesis and they will learn better. In fact, these children are much better. They can do farming very easily. Even if you blindfold them, they can do farming very easily. It is that the process, like what Dora had also mentioned, the process is the learning process. Whatever you're doing, try and learn something out of it. So these were some of the challenges, and we had the solutions that we could offer to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dibjoti, for that wonderful session. Before you go down, we would like to take a moment to honor you, sir. May I call upon our founding curator, Mr. Armstrong Kwame, to kindly come up on stage and felicitate our speaker. Now, we have a small announcement. Before we proceed with the workshop, we would like to take a moment to award the winner of the photography contest of Imphal Jamboree. We had a very small photography contest, online photography contest, the theme being education. So the winner is Mr. Mike Mangang. If Mr. Mike Mangang is in the room, I would like to invite him to kindly come up on stage. Is Mr. Mike Mangang in the room? Yes. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Mike Mangang. This is the photograph that he submitted, and the caption being, "Concentrate in studies for a brighter future." May I again request our founding curator to kindly come up on stage and present our humble token of love and appreciation for Mr. Mike Mangang. Congratulations, Mr. Mike Mangang, and thank you so much for being with us. Would you like to say anything? Okay. Thank you so much once again. So now, ladies and gentlemen, we have finally come to the point where we head over to the dining hall for the workshop with Dora. So, are you guys ready? Great. Then let's all head over to the dining hall to proceed with the workshop and education. Come on, guys. This will be the last session for today.
16.
And then just
17, 17, 17.
And then 18. Okay, 18 in the middle. 19. Okay. And then 20. Okay. Okay, so I see. Okay, there's only 2. Okay, so everyone's starting to feel a bit lonely because some of them are 2, some of them are. So, okay, like I said, best group sizes are. So what I'm going to ask you to do now is just turn around, random group who's next to you, and pair up with them so you have a group of no more than 8. Okay? Okay, we're starting. 4. Make new friends. How do you prefer those? I just wanted to be less lonely. Okay guys, so I'll just explain the workshop real quickly what we're going to do. So I think a moment ago I was talking a lot about Deep Jyoti was also talking about, being able to, teach kids through farming, right? So we're starting to see that it's a lot of, how do we do things so that it's not conventional, right? Because you remember when I was talking about motivation? Why is it you can remember all the Pokemons but nothing else? So what we're going to do right now is, with in the teams that you're in, we're going to give out paper, and then we're going to get you guys discuss in your groups, in your teams. What wasn't taught in school, but it would have been so nice if it was. So in the past, when I ran this in Bangkok, we've had like everything. And going back to being creative and being confident in how creative you are. When I was in Bangkok, there were some people who mentioned oh, I wish they taught us how to do makeup properly. When we were in high school, because when you come out into real life, it's oh, now I need to know how to draw my eyebrows properly, So stuff like that, or even how to cook. So I want you guys, what I'm going to ask you guys to do first is just list all of that out, what you think would have been useful if you had learned that in university. List that as many as you can think of, and then what we'll do after that is we'll back if you could rewind your life and go back to even primary school or secondary school, what would have been useful for you? Okay? And we have these boards that later on we can paste stuff onto the put stuff onto the board, but just where we get to in 10 minutes time. Okay, so just brainstorm all the ideas at the time. Okay. So then this is another tool that we can do. So what I've done in the past is, usually when we brainstorm, what happens is it gets dominated, right? Usually when you brainstorm, what happens is your brainstorming gets dominated. Everybody, so with every piece of paper that you have, write down your ideas first. The later 5 minutes, you guys can get to talk to each other regarding all of this. Okay?
Anything at school in it, all the school stuff, or the whole like that, like that. Anything when maybe it's dancing or skating, whatever,
Live title and live.
So try to give people on your team a bit of context, like why you picked a certain thing, right? And how you see it in your head. Just so that it's not like a one headline and that's it, right? Okay, so just try to share within your teams. And I think I'll probably give you a few more. It's 4, okay, so we'll end it at 4:35. Okay? So then a few more minutes just to share.
Yes, so one person take the initiative of writing it down. So you can start sharing your ideas. Can you sit a little closer so that your voice can be heard by him? Yeah, start sharing your ideas. Come on, come on.
Exposed to any job opportunity where you job first interview
Even I'm from the music class, so when it's a mutual.
Okay. That's good. Good to see like mutual.
I had singing also. Yes, I can sing. So if anybody wrote the same thing, like what did you know me? Second thing what I wanted to learn from my school, like we always lay emphasis on you eat healthy food, you eat this, right? Everyone tells about food, but no one tells about meal planning. Okay, the meal budgeting, right? And how meal budgeting is different with men and women. Person or for a lactating mother, right? Why it should be a responsibility of a husband only. When there is a child, 10-year child, he can also take care of the mother if she's there a second time. So that is, I feel,
have been much more better, it would have been much more, we have been able to understand more if we had a practical-based approach of learning to understand. It has been wonderful for us to learn rather than to memorize theory.
Brainstorming. Previously, I would be a person who would go into detail in every single brainstorming part. Okay? For this time round, I want you to okay, so this time round I want you to try to tweak the way you're working. Okay? By tweaking, okay, we care about a lot of ideas first. Because if there are a lot of ideas, somewhere in that a lot of ideas, there will be the best idea. But if we're only focusing on trying to get the best idea, there will be a lot of other ideas that are also really good, but we won't get the chance to explore them. Okay? So I'm giving you guys another 5 minutes. No need to go into too much detail. Just say what it is that class that you're thinking about. What is your, why you want that. And then what I'm going to get you guys to do after this is actually vote. We're going to take a few of your ideas and then we're going to try to turn that into actual classes. So just no need to go into too much detail, but I want everybody to get a chance to speak. Okay? So go for quantity. It sounds really
How to take more?
2 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 to 2 minutes.
You have to take it care of stock trading. Yeah, like a stock broker. Because like, see, everyone should know how to invest money, right? So,
Okay, final minute, final minute. Okay, guys, one really important thing, okay? This workshop, guys. Okay, shows you how to do this, okay? The most important thing is how to do this. You're going to, okay? So, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just looking to understand the process, okay? Now, everybody, you've written everything down, right? Everything's written down? Yeah? Okay, now what I want you guys to do is, everybody has a pen, right? What I'm going to ask you to do is go to the piece of paper that your group wrote, and you're able to give these 3 votes to anything on the list. Okay? One thing though. Everyone votes at the same time. Okay? The reason why everyone votes at the same time is this is just for you to get used to. Sometimes what will happen is you have a best friend and they voted for something and you'll feel like, oh, I'll vote after them. So that's why we're saying vote at the same time. You have 3 votes. If you want to give that 3 votes to just one project, you can do that. If you're like, take all my votes, you can do that, okay? But if you want to split your vote, we're going to pick the ideas for each group, 2 to 3 ideas with the most votes, and then we're going to go work with those in detail, okay? So everybody get up, go look at your piece of paper. You've got 3 minutes to vote. You guys can talk amongst yourselves when you want to start voting, okay? Okay, 3 minutes. 3 votes.
vote, do you know? Yes. First, you go through the list. When say 1, 2, 3, you all jump in and just. Okay, got it?
I will smash it with your figure out once it's going on.
Which 3 you want to vote for, and when everybody has decided, then you ask everybody, and we'll like, okay, then everybody vote. 1, 2, 3, and everybody. It's gonna be like quite hectic, but like. Okay, so just take your best and think of 3 that you wanna.
Just go.
Finish thinking. Everybody, let's do that.
Don't look